Okay. Keep your microphones on, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board, town hall, and mailing to the officially designated newspapers a list of the meeting dates annually, indicating that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on August 19th.
Joseph Caulfield,
Present.
Amy Lawrence,
Here.
Gary Rosen,
Here.
Judy Truitt.
Here.
Craig Whitman.
Here. A couple quick things before we jump into the minutes and memorializations. For applications this evening, if you're here on application calendar 399324, Jonah Rathman at 61 Slayton, that is adjourned to October 21st. And as noted, calendar 398624, MW of Short Hills, located at 752 Morris Turnpike, that application has been withdrawn. So those two will not be heard this evening. So next we'll be moving on to our approval of minutes of 7/1/24. Any corrections or changes? And who is eligible?
Eligible, Joseph, Amy, Regina, Jessica, Craig.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of 7/1/24?
I make a motion to adopt the minutes as
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, we have the memorializations of calendar 398224, Mecca Property Development LLC at 18 Willow Street, Millbury. We have eligible on that.
Joseph, Amy, Gary, Craig.
Okay. Any corrections or changes to that memorialization? If not, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the memorialization for calendar number 3982-24.
And a second.
a second.
Thank you.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence.
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Craig Whitman.
Yes. Next up, calendar 398024, M. Kurtiagi, 102 Cypress Street, Millburn. Same crew or?
Same and Regina.
All right. Any corrections or changes to that application? If not, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve calendar 3980-24.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence,
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
Yes.
Craig Whitman.
Yes. Next up is calendar 398824, Jemana and Brendan Culligan at 10 Forest Drive. Who's eligible on that?
Same.
Okay. Any corrections or changes? If not, can I have a motion?
Move to accept.
And a second?
Second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence.
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
Yes.
Craig Whitman.
Yes. Cool thing. So calendar 398724, which will be our first matter of the evening, Paper Mill Playhouse. I asked Counselor, so I'm gonna make this announcement for you, and if, I'm not sure for calendar 399224, the Veterinary Emergency Group, is someone here representing them? Okay,
I am Chairman John Wichiscala.
Great.
Good to see you tonight.
as you can see, we have 5 voters.
Understood.
Okay, so I'll make that announcement. Once you have a D variance, you have a D variance. So just knowing that, you need clean sweep this evening. So depending on what you choose, you still have a few minutes yet. I'm just letting you know that, obviously now, because you're coming to first the show here. So with that, would you like to proceed?
Yes,
Okay,
see how far we get.
very good. I would like to try, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, we do have a member that has made a donation to the Paper Mill Playhouse. We do not think it's a conflict, but we're letting you know if you want to proceed.
We don't have any issue with that.
Okay,
We don't think it was actually a donation made, or if it was a long time ago.
very well.
Letting you know?
Okay.
And we would like to try to have your testimony wrapped up by 9 p.m. as we do have others to get to this evening, another significant case and several other resolutions. With that, the floor is yours.
And just to make a note, Regina did listen to the tape for this meeting from June 26th. She's eligible.
Yep, she's up to date.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thanks, Chairman, members of the board. To bring us back into it, we were here on June 17th with testimony from Mike Stotts, Paper Mill's Executive Director. And just 3 quick points before we get started with our architect. First, I think everybody understands that the vast majority of the Paper Mill project are renovations of interior space. The exterior renovations that we have site plan issues with are the lobby expansion of the theater of 2,592 square feet and the footprint of the carriage house with 1,670 square feet. So we're talking about an approximate 4,260 square foot addition of space on a 3.27 acre parcel. That's 142,000 square feet. So really modest additions totaling 4,260 square feet. I remind the board of Mr. Stotts' testimony that the last significant renovations at Paper Mill took place in the 1980s. So I think it's fair to state that some renovations are long overdue. And number 3, as we let you know, Paper Mill purchased lot 15. We'll go into that with the engineer and our planner, but Paper Mill purchased lot 15 last year. That's where the parking lot was. There was a house that was being rented. That house has now come down, and the township of Millburn, which signed the application that's before you, was the property owner of lots 13 and 14. They're in the process of purchasing lot 15. There was a bond ordinance back in April, which is a public record. Last week, there was an ordinance introduced at the governing body to carry out the purchase. The purchase and sale agreement has been fully negotiated, and the second reading of that ordinance is scheduled for September 3rd. And those facts will come into play during the planning testimony, but I just wanted to remind the board of those facts. So with that, Chairman, we have our architect, Don Kim, our civil engineer, Adam Westenberger, and hopefully Mr. Keller on the planning testimony. We've worked hard to give you everything that you need in terms of the essentials, but also to pare down so we don't go on for too long. What I've done also is pre-marked the exhibits, and I'll hand that out. This way we can move along more quickly. This is a list of the 11 boards that the architect is going to go over. So you have those. This way we don't have to spend time describing what they are. 9 out of these 11 are already in your packet. There's only 2 new ones, but this way we can sort of move along and just call them out. So they, I wanted to give the list so that you had them and we could move along with brevity. Okay, we're going to call our first witness for tonight, Don
So
Kim.
I see your hands raised. What's it in relation to?
The Paper Mill case.
Okay, well, when we're obviously not open for public question yet, but you'll be able to question professionals as they come up.
Yeah, at the end of the last meeting, we had open question for Mr. Stotts.
Right.
There was a significant amount of testimony after he answered the questions, and the board has some the questions that opened my eyes to some things that I wanted to ask Mr. Stotts. Is now a good time, or should that be done later?
At this point, you're not bringing Mr. Stotts forward tonight, are you?
We're not planning on it, but we're not going to deny him the right to ask
No,
additional questions.
so when we open up for questions at the end, you can certainly come in and do that, since he is here this evening. So, but we're going to continue with the testimony, and then if you'd like to come up when we ask questions, we can do that.
Okay,
So,
we'll call
your
Don
first-
Kim, an expert in the field of architecture. We can have him sworn. Take that side, Don, since you're there.
Please just raise your right. You swear or from the testimony about you give case proceeding to the truth, whole truth, and the truth.
I do.
Your name and address for the record.
My name is Don Kim. My address is 14 Hodge Road, Kendall Park, New Jersey, 08824.
And can you provide your professional qualifications for the board?
I'm a senior associate at KSS Architects. I hold a Bachelor of Architecture degree, licensed architect in the state of California and the state of New Jersey. Also a LEED accredited professional. Both of my licenses are current and in good standing. Have not testified in Millburn. I have testified in New Jersey. Never not been accepted. I'm also a member of the American Institute of Architects, and my role on this project is a project manager.
And you're familiar with all the plans that have been developed and submitted?
Yes.
Chairman, I'll submit Mr. Kim as an expert in the field of architecture.
Its credentials are accepted by this board. Please continue.
We appreciate that, and you'll know Mr. Westenberger, our engineer, has graciously agreed to help flip the board so we can keep it going. So Don, I'll leave it to you to give a brief outline of the project. Please call out the exhibit numbers and the sheets as you go along so that the record has that. And it's only exhibits A8 and A11 that are new. A8 and A11 are new. All the other ones are already in your packets, but we've remarked them for clarity.
Okay, when we get to that, just, what's that? Yeah, okay, well, when we get to that, you just have to let us know.
When we get to 8, we'll stop
Yeah,
and we'll
just so we
announce
can
it,
enter
but
that.
8-1 through 7, you already have all those, and he's gonna call out the sheets that are on these boards.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening on behalf of this very important project. We believe in this project because we understand the significance of the history to the township, the Paper Mill organization, the building, the site, and the community. We also really appreciate the partnership and collaboration with the town and the Millburn Historic Preservation Commission on the development of conceptual design ideas for this project. My first exhibit is exhibit number A1 here on the left-hand side. In this first exhibit, the current main entry facade that the Millburn Historic Preservation Commission has deemed historically significant can be seen brought forward to the southern side of the new carriage house expansion, facing the main approach from downtown along Brookside Drive. In doing so, we look to amplify the significance of the facade and position it to become the new front face and gateway to the Paper Mill campus. Exhibit A2 on the right-hand side here, we understand this project is critical to the continuation of the Paper Mill organization. The historically original theater was a fraction of the size it is today. As the size of the theater grew and grew over the years, together with the success of the Paper Mill into what's today the 1,100 plus seat capacity, the front of house for the theater did not grow accordingly. The small carriage house restaurant that primarily services the theater followed the same trajectory, or lack thereof for that matter, and today struggles to keep up with the demand. So we believe this project presents the opportunity to provide critically needed restrooms, milling areas, queuing areas, accessibility provisions, remediation of challenging split levels, and improve comfort and safety for Paper Mill's patrons, in particular the senior and disabled populations at both the front of house as well as the carriage house. So this project endeavors to do so with a design that is complementary to each other and in a manner that reinforces community, and most importantly, it pays respect to the history of the architecture that is there today. Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
That was
I
already
realized
free.
Okay.
Already got
So
it.
the third A3 exhibit here on the left. So to that end, the design seeks to incorporate the textured red brick and the strong gable roof form of the existing architecture. It further incorporates a large recess at the new main entry facade in the location of and matching the geometric shape and size of the facade that the HPC has deemed historically significant. And it does so by echoing the future absence of that facade as a memorial homage and tribute to it. In dialogue with the HPC, we understand the existing courtyard in the front is a defining characteristic of the history of the site and very much beloved by the community.
So when was that dialogue taking place that you're referring to?
We've had several meetings with HPC over the last year and a half, let's say.
Okay, so you're referring to these meetings, that's why, we don't have that intel, so, you know, when you say these meetings, it'd be nice to know the context and the timing.
Okay, I believe we've had maybe 2 to 3 over the last year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, most recently, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Okay, so the existing courtyard, we understand from the HPC is a defining characteristic of the history of the site It's very much beloved by the community, so we are proposing to maintain it as such and continue its use for outdoor milling and an open area for respite. Finally, our hope is that the transparency and the visibility of the new front of the theater will strengthen the Paper Mill's engagement and community with theater. It will allow it to feel more welcoming, safe, and inviting to visitors, and also in doing so reinforce the unity with the town and the public. This exhibit on the left is a view of the riverside of the Paper Mill Theater building.
We're on A4 now.
A4. The riverside of the building continues the same red brick masonry from the front, while incorporating a continuation of the punch windows with arched tops that exist today. And we've endeavored to do this in a manner that reflects the industrial heritage of the original mill and architecture. Again, on the left-hand side, exhibit A5. And finally, this project will address several safety concerns that currently exist throughout the site. The overly steep slopes and grading of the walking areas will be corrected, and uneven plaza paving will be replaced in full to eliminate trip hazards.
Looking south there, correct?
This would be looking south, yes,
South.
from the main parking lot. Okay, yes, if you wouldn't mind pulling those up. These are real quick if you want to stand.
Guess so.
Oh,
Go ahead, these are broke. Go ahead.
okay, so we are on exhibit A6. This exhibit depicts the proposed removal of the existing facade of the southern wing of the carriage house to prepare for a first floor expansion, a second story addition, and associated new facades. No work is planned at the northern wing here.
Adam, let's see if we can get that back up. We break, so we can't just leave them there.
I think I got it.
Okay.
And this is one of those two new exhibits.
No,
I'm sorry.
no,
it's
not
it's
yet,
not.
not
I apologize.
You ready for A6?
This was it.
A8's the new one.
Yeah.
Okay, and this exhibit, A7, depicts a proposal to create a larger dining and event space, new elevator and stairs for accessibility and safer exiting, increased toilet capacity, and increased kitchen capacity.
We're talking about the carriage house.
This is now the carriage house, yep. The seating capacity will increase from 125 to 222, and that increase is spread across 4 different rooms throughout the building. Next one. Exhibit A8. This exhibit.
This is a new one, okay? This is the building elevations. This has a revision dated June 13th.
That's
And I asked you to create this exhibit to show some of the height variances, correct?
Yeah, this is
What we're
actually
talking about.
essentially the same exhibit that was submitted. The only difference is we've added some dimensions here to help explain the height
Okay,
variance.
so we'll need that one then. At the end.
So this exhibit depicts the variance relief we seek for the building height. The allowable height is 32 feet, and the proposed height is 32 feet 4 inches.
So we're just 4 inches over, for architectural reasons, but it's one of the D6 height variances, or actually D3. Excuse me, just a C variance for height. Let me
This
get
one
it
would be a
straight.
C,
Okay,
yes.
C variance for a couple inches over.
4 inches over.
Oh, okay.
This height is needed to accommodate a new elevator and connection to the second floor level, the existing second floor level, while maintaining as close as possible to the original historic facade geometry and roof slopes that we're trying to match from the original facade. Okay. And exhibit A9 coming up here. We're back at the theater building now. This exhibit just simply depicts the proposed removal of the portions of the front of house to prepare for the new improved front of house.
John, and just to
Just this
repeat
area here.
something that Mike Stotts testified, the theater area, the main theater area, that's not changing as part of this.
No work at theater.
Okay, so there's 1,100 or 1,200 seats, that's all staying the same. This is back of the house and the amenities in the front of the house and that sort of
That's right.
improvement.
Just the front of the house, no work at the back of the house in this application.
Okay,
So that was simply just a demo of the front of house for reference, and then, yep, thank you. We are at the proposed plans now. This is Exhibit A10. This exhibit depicts a new front of house that consists of large, open, contiguous lobby areas without split levels that can be safer and more comfortable during billing times, significantly increased toilet capacities, a physical interior connection to the back of house areas, and modernized HVAC systems that are more efficient with better air filtration is one of the goals.
and just point out where those areas are on Exhibit A10.
This is the new front of house area. Okay, and all of this is existing. That will not be part of this project. Back of house, auditorium, stage, none of that is part of this application. This is, I believe this is the last exhibit.
Okay, and that's in,
11.
okay, and that's a new one also.
Similar story here. It's basically the same exhibit that was submitted. We just simply, in yellow here, we've added some dimensions to help depict the variance relief we're seeking.
Okay. And we have a couple of additional, what I'm gonna call minor height variances. And I asked you to create this exhibit to show the board where those height variances are located and explain why we need them.
Yep.
Okay, can you do that using A11 for me?
A11, this is the exhibit that depicts the variance relief for height. The gray shaded areas here, so these diagonal darker areas are the existing building that will remain. And then obviously these white areas are the additions. The new additions are higher than the allowable height, but they are, as you can see, significantly lower than the existing building height. The allowable zoning code height is 40 feet, and the proposed height of the new lobby gable roof is 43 feet 9 inches. This height is needed to accommodate the new lobby second floor while maintaining as close as possible to the shape and geometry of the existing roof slopes.
So this is 40 feet permitted in the CD zone, and you're proposing 43.8 feet here.
That's correct.
Okay? Okay, I call that out as a C variance because we're less than 10%, and it's an architectural feature.
It's an architectural and functional feature as well to get the new second floor
Okay,
in there as well.
but can you just point that out on exhibit A2 over there where you're talking about it on the rendering so the board knows a
Yes,
little bit?
right here.
Just
Okay.
lobby gable is where you're slightly over then.
Yeah, at the,
0.7 feet.
it's not the whole thing, but it's just
Just the
a
gable.
certain part of
Just
it
the
where
tip,
where it goes. But there's other parts of the building that are taller in the back. Okay, so that's a C on the new lobby gable, and then there's a variance for the a stair enclosure as well. Can you point that out?
Yep, the proposed height of the new stair enclosures. There's 2 stair enclosures proposed. One is for access to the control room, and the other is access to the main roof of the theater that exists today. These are needed to provide more functional and safer access to the control room and the main roof that currently exists today. Those proposed heights are 45 feet 2. There's one, very similar to the lobby gable we just discussed. And then the back one here, that provides a safer and better access to the main auditorium roof here. That's 54 feet 5 inches.
Okay, and we've called those out as D variances because we have 40 feet permitted in the CD zone. Those are relatively minor structures. They don't exceed the maximum height that's out there today,
Right.
correct?
That's correct.
And there are design and architectural reasons to have the stair enclosure and the control room stair enclosure. Okay? Okay?
Yep, and that's it for my testimony. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening and considering this project.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for this question?
Quick question, and this is just a question. So there's a lot of new glass going up, correct? Or is, because that doesn't exist today?
Yes, the main front face of the new lobby is proposed to be very transparent, welcoming, and safe. Those are kind of our
Is there any thought
goals.
to making it bird safe? This is a little bit, this is nothing new in the ordinance, it's
Yes.
just a thought to ask.
That's a very good point. That is becoming a more and more important topic today, and we will definitely consider, it's mainly about the glass selection, the exact type of glass that we select.
Right,
and
I
we
mean,
will
there's no, we
definitely
don't have an
look
ordinance
into
in that one for that. Just a thought to consider. And there is like a beautiful gate on the property now, the archway, is that remaining?
Yes, the gate. I think we are considering repurposing it.
They're gonna be repurposed on the campus, but they're not part of this, design yet. But they
No,
will, the
okay,
two
but it'll
arches
stay
will be-
somewhere on the campus,
yes, they
because
will
it's
stay.
lovely, and it's, to me, that's very welcoming. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just sticking with your A11, 43 feet is the height of the new roof you're referring to, the new gable?
43.8.
43.
43 point. What is the existing height now of the front of the house? The exterior?
Jeez. So if you know, the main sort of gable portion of it is roughly the size of this, right? That This is
It is,
the,
right?
this is the homage to it. There are portions though that there are various bump outs and lots of
Yeah.
different masses off the sides and stuff. I do not have the exact numbers of those off the top of my head.
So that homage you're saying, the smaller gable, that's just reflecting with the existing right now?
The main,
front house.
We'll try to get that number for you on what it is. Maybe it could be on the plans, the existing on the zoning block. I don't know if it drilled down.
Any questions for the architect from the audience? Come on forward. Now, as mentioned, your questions regarding previous testimony, correct? Or do you have some for the architect as well?
I have questions for the architect.
Okay. Just your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Douglas Miller, 35 Brookside Drive, Melbourne.
Okay.
In your testimony, you said the historic facade was brought forward and that it's deemed a historically significant element by the HPC. So it's going to be brought forward and used as the facade facing the parking lot on the Carriage House building, correct?
That's correct.
At the last meeting, Mr. Stotts testified that due to the scheduling of construction, it was going to be torn down completely and a new facade was going to be built. So there was the impression that the HPC has condoned this, but in all the previous meetings I went to regarding this, this is the testimony that I heard, that the historic facade was going to be reconstructed, but it does not appear to be the case. So I asked for any documentation from the HPC, but there doesn't appear to be any. I know at the last meeting, yeah, I know at the last meeting, Ms. Glatt said that she's on the HPC and she has a liaison to the HPC and hasn't heard anything. And then the board, the paper mill was referred to the HPC. I was supposed to go there.
Question though, because we're in the
Oh, yeah, sure.
question, So
So is the historic facade being torn down and demolished and thrown away?
Eventually, that's my understanding, after the new one that is intended to replicate it is constructed. That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Just while you're going through this, you're talking about the carriage house only, not the main theater building, correct?
I'm talking about the historic facade that's the entrance to the existing paper mill playhouse.
Okay.
I believe you're referring to this facade.
Correct, yes.
what?
That's the carriage
Yeah, that's the carriage house now, correct? So,
No.
so
If it's-
the existing facade, you're saying, is being removed and is being replaced on the carriage house as an homage. We're on the same page, right?
Right, but he testified that the facade was historically significant and deemed
He
so
didn't
by.
testify. He said that the HPC said it
Oh.
was. We make no representations. We don't agree. There's no historic designation at all. The HPC felt it had value, and my client respected that feeling. We are not agreeing or conceding that there's any historic designations on this site. I think you understand the difference.
I do, yes. Is the HPC aware that the historic facade is being torn down?
You have to ask the
HPC has had this application.
Well, first of all, you're directing your questions
Yes, sorry. Okay, I'll move on from the facade.
Or, Mr. Stots, if you choose so, but otherwise.
Okay. You had testified that there's going to be 222 seat capacity in the new Carriage House restaurant.
Yes.
In the notice, it was said that the capacity of the Carriage House restaurant was going to double. And in the prior meeting, Mr. Stott said the seating was going to go from 80 to 160. So now we're talking about 222 seats, which is closer to tripling the size of the restaurant.
The notice actually says 223. We were off by one in some of the counties. So the notice says 223. I think that's the fact. Don, can you confirm that the accurate number is 222?
I understand it's 222 is my understanding.
Right, we had to count a couple of times, and we arrived at 222 at the end, one seat off from the notice.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the architect? Please come forward to the lectern and your name and address for the record.
I'm Beth Miller, and I live at 35 Brookside Drive
Thank
in
you.
Melbourne. I'm so sorry, terribly sorry. It's kind of a repeat question, but I just really would like some clarification.
Sure.
There was a little bit of back and forth. So I just really would like to know, in terms of the historic facade that is on the front of the Paper Mill Playhouse, when you're going to be undertaking this project, will that be demolished or retained and reused?
We would like to reconstruct it new next summer, assuming we get approval. And then we'd like to demolish the original one to make room for the new facade here that we show.
Okay, so that's where I'm getting confused, because I'm hearing we would like to reconstruct it and we would like to demolish it. So are you demolishing the original facade?
That's the intent eventually, yes. After we've reconstructed it here in the front, we brought it from here to here, then we'd like to demolish the original one here and then build the new facade in its place.
Okay, so you will not be retaining the historic facade, but instead you will be building a reproduction of it. Is that correct?
Yes, we'd like to reconstruct a new one in as close to the original as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Can we clarify that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Name and address.
And my name is Jeffrey Fell, excuse me, 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. My question begins with premise on certain statements that were made by the attorney at the beginning, where he made reference to the bond ordinance and to the sale purchase agreement. On the sale purchase agreement, when you read it, which hasn't been produced to you, the agreement.
Oh, wait, that's way outside. our-
No, but no, listen, it goes to the architect because the property is
Ask
located,
then ask
the property-
architect the question.
property is located within a flood zone.
Okay.
Based on all your changes, have you made any changes to reflect or protect it because it's located in a 100-year flood zone? Like, have you moved some of the mechanical stuff? Because let's say what we learned from Hurricane Sandy in New York, that a lot of things that were in the basement have been lifted up, mechanical stuff. Have you taken that into account? That it's located in a 100-year flood zone? Are you moving any of the mechanical stuff from the, let's say, the basement, from a area that could be prone to flooding to a higher area? And what other changes have you done to take into account the location within a 100-year flood zone? Thank you.
Don, can you handle that from the architectural standpoint? And Mr. Feld, we'll have the next witness talk about that from the civil engineer, because obviously we're dealing with the DEP, so.
Let me pick up this.
That's okay. People are throwing much worse that way.
Do you care to answer that, or are you defer to?
If it's okay, it's an engineering question. I'd like to defer to the civil engineer if that's possible.
Don, have there been any architectural changes due to the floodplain issues in terms of the mechanicals?
I would not, I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Any other questions for the architect regarding his testimony? Throw it back to you.
Okay, we're ready for our next witness.
Go ahead.
Adam Westenberger, expert in the field of civil engineering. Thank you, Don.
not been qualified at this point, correct?
He has not been qualified. If I could have him sworn, please.
You just raise your right hand. You swear from testimony not to be given today, proceeding to the truth, the truth.
I do.
Your name.
Adam Westenberger, 245 Main Street, Chester, New Jersey.
Just spell your last name.
Westenberger.
And can you provide your professional qualifications, sir?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I'm a licensed professional engineer in good standing in the state of New Jersey. I've testified in front of dozens of boards in the state of New Jersey and worked on hundreds of projects throughout the state.
And you're the lead on this project?
Yes, I'm familiar with the plans and the preparation.
And your licenses are in good standing?
Yes.
And those other boards have been recognized as an expert?
Yes.
Correct? Chairman, I'll submit Mr. Westenberger as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Credentials are accepted by this board. Please proceed.
Okay, Adam, I'm going to ask you to go out of order, just answer Mr. Feld's question first, since it's on our mind. You know, obviously, we have a river right next door. Can you tell the board what's happening with the state and the floodplains and all that?
Sure, we've made application to the state of New Jersey, to the Department of Environmental Protection for the flood zone that's on the property. Both the theater and the proposed expansion to the carriage house are above the 100-year flood elevation and the additional foot required by the state of New Jersey. So the finished floor elevations are all elevated above that, and there's no direct flow into any basement areas or anything of that nature where mechanical equipment is located. So that is going to remain as Don testified to.
And obviously, before we start construction, we have to get the necessary permits from the state of New Jersey DEP.
Yes, we have a pending application with them right now. We expect a result in the next month or so on the approval of site.
Okay. Can you give us a little recap from the civil engineering side of the aisle?
Sure. So I would like to bring up my first exhibit, which is the colorized aerial exhibit. It's included in the packet, so I did not mark it.
Okay.
Would you like me to or no?
No alterations to it?
No.
No, no need.
Okay, so this is the aerial exhibit of the existing property. The north arrow is located at the top left corner of the exhibit, with the north arrow pointing to plan left, and the exhibit's at 100 scale. The lots in question are block 1304, lots 13 through 15. Lots 13 and 14 are the lots which the main theater is located on, and these are in the CD Cultural District Zone. And lot 15 is what Mr. Skolnick referenced earlier with the parking lot, and that is in the R6 residential 6,000 square foot zone. I'm going to move to my next exhibit.
Okay, and that's a new one?
This is a new exhibit. So
Okay, it's going to be A12. And would you give this exhibit a name and a date?
It's A12. This is the overall site plan rendering. It's dated June 17th, 2024. It's a colorized version of the site plan that was submitted in the packet.
Okay, so we're going to call it overall site plan rendered with a date of 6/17/24 for the record. That's A12.
Can you mark it A12?
Yes.
Okay.
I did already before.
Okay, that's it.
We're ahead of you, Chairman.
Love it.
We're trying. The north arrow is located at the top right corner with the north arrow pointing to plan left. The exhibit's at 30 scale. So as Mr. Skolnick referenced earlier, the building expansions, there's the proposed theater expansions, which is 2,592 square feet of footprint area that's located around the eastern and western portions of the building. The southern facade side is actually pulled back a little bit from where the existing
So
facade
that's
is.
the dark orange on this plan.
The dark orange on this plan is the proposed portion of the building. The lighter orange is the existing bulk of the theater, which Mr. Skolnick referenced earlier.
So dark orange is new footprint.
Yes,
Dark orange is new footprint on this one. Okay.
and on the existing carriage house building, we have the lighter orange of the existing carriage house and then the proposed expansion of 1,670 square feet.
Okay, so to set up Mr. Keller's testimony a little bit, the expanded carriage house is going to go onto that lot 15, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we have no setbacks to the lot line there because of sort of the way the properties have come into ownership. The potentially these lots will all be merged into one, but we do have some relief, and it's part of the bulky relief
Yes.
of no setbacks, because the carriage house is gonna expand into what is now lot 15, that's the dark orange on
At
the
this-
carriage
At this
house.
time, the proposed expansion is gonna be straddling the lot line.
Okay. Talk to me just for a minute, because we do have requests for front yard setback deviations. Can you point out where those are on the dark orange, so the
Yeah.
board sort of sees what's going on there?
Sure, so the front yard setback for the theater building,
That's what, lot 13?
this is on lot 13 and 14.
Got it.
The existing front yard, well, actually, there's a structure that's located partially in the right of way, so there's a 0-foot setback.
Okay, but the main
Currently, with
building,
this main building,
so we're keeping the plane of the main building,
Yes.
more or less.
yes.
Right.
I don't have the existing, but the proposed is about 11 feet setback, and then for the carriage house, it matches the exact location of where the old single-family home was proposed previously,
Okay.
the same setback that was there.
So we're requesting some front yard setback variances, but we're not coming any closer than other existing portions of both the carriage house and the theater.
Correct.
On that. Okay, Mr. Keller's gonna go into some more detail, but I wanna call out some of the things. Similarly, in the rear yard, we have some rear yard setback deviations. Can you just, since we're on this exhibit, can you show the board where that is?
Sure, so the theater building is expanding towards the rear, towards the stream, and so the existing setback was 93.2 feet for the theater, and we're at 89.5 feet for the proposed area just along this new courtyard area. So there's a small 4-foot change in the rear yard setback. That's a variance where 118 feet is required. This zone, I should say, this zone has unusual zoning where the setback requirements from all property lines are double the building height. So
Okay,
there's a very unbelievably small allowable footprint area where you could actually build a building on this site. It is this little moon-shaped sliver in the middle of the property where you can actually feasibly construct a building that complies. Obviously, that's not possible. So,
but the rear yard setback, it's that, the addition in the back there, that essentially keeps the plane of the building. It goes a few feet closer to
Yes.
the property line. I just wanted to point that out. So
yes.
So we have some of the foundation for Mr. Keller there. Okay,
So, I'm going to continue with parking.
sure.
So, as Mr. Kim alluded to, the number of seats in the actual theater is unchanged. So the previously required spaces for 1,144 seats. You require one space for every 3 seats, so that's 381 required. That is not changing based on the theater. And then for the carriage house, we had the discussion about 222 proposed seats. That's an increase of 97 seats based on the existing number of seats. So the increased parking demand is 33 spaces for the restaurant.
And that's really,
Now-
that's really technical,
Yes,
because we have testimony from Mr. Stotts, they're not gonna be used at the same time, meaning when the theater is in operation, they're not gonna be also having other events at the carriage house. But technically speaking, we are increasing the seating at the carriage house, so if you add the seating for the theater and the carriage house together, there's an increased demand.
precisely, yes.
Okay.
So technically speaking, however, we understand that anyone that's attending the carriage house during a theater performance will also be attending the theater performance, and therefore they're included in that calculation already.
Okay, and we'll have some more testimony from Mr. Keller on the parking issue, but thank you for clarifying how we did the calculations.
So, some of the other proposed improvements, there are some proposed parking improvements on the northern side of the lot. There were previously a row of parking spaces and then ADA parking spaces along the riverside retaining wall. That some of those ADA parking spaces were relocated to increase the courtyard area for pedestrian movement and circulation. And so those relocated parking spaces moved further north, and they have a few associated sizing variances with them. We're proposing where a 9 by 19 foot space is required, we're proposing a 9 by 18 foot, which is standard industry practice. still safe and navigable parking space size.
That's for regular parking.
That is for one, there's one regular parking space.
It's just one space that's
There's
on
one
the side.
space on the end.
One
on the
space
end
on the whole.
underside. And then there's the 6 relocated ADA parking spaces.
Those are 12 by 20 required, correct?
So 12 by 20 is required within Millburn. We're proposing what the more common federal standard is, where we have the 8-foot spaces and then the intermittent 8 or 5-foot striping in between. So our proposed ADA parking sizes are 8 by 18, which typical for the federal requirements.
Any
for the
safety
ADA.
issues
No,
or,
that's
or circulation issues? And
no,
this is-
that's incredibly common. That's the standard, frankly, in the whole country.
Okay, so Milburn has an even greater
They have a-
standard. You obviously tried to design for that, but
We would
The
lose a
constraints?
space or two, and so we opted for the more common federal requirement.
okay.
So those spaces have been moved further away from the facility?
They have, I think proximity to the door hasn't changed significantly, but those have been relocated. And additionally, I believe they're, under previous work, there have been some improvements made to the spaces associated with the carriage house as well. So there have been some improvements made to those, and then we made sure to improve the ADA access to the door as well.
How is the access to the doors for people who need?
Sure, there's a striped out ADA accessible walking path that follows to the pedestrian courtyard. This is all complies with ADA grading standards for safe
So it's a
safe
ramp?
travel.
It's a ramp?
There is a ramp that leads from where the parking lot meets the courtyard area, yes.
Or an elevator that can take them?
Interior, yeah, I believe, yes, there's
So because
elevators
there's
inside.
because you're entering on the ground floor there, or you're entering on the same level as the theater?
Mr. Kim can talk to this. I believe there's some, the front and the back of the house don't really connect so well. They're sort of separate areas, and that's, so the front spaces here connect to the main
Right.
front theater lobby area. This is more for back of house for employees really, and this will go into whatever access level they need to access the elevators.
Either way, it'll
If
be,
you're-
It's an old building. It
If you're a
doesn't really
handicapped
connect.
patron, if you're a handicapped individual who requires adaptive access, how
Yes.
do they get it?
So
And where do
they
they
will,
park?
they can park in the lot here that accesses the front door. There's ADA access point parking spaces across the street as well, that's utilized for this site. And so that has a new ramp that accesses the front door. Like I said, these are really more for employees who are required to install ADA spaces in any parking lot, so they're treated as individual lots. But really, ADA patrons will be accessing probably more the front of house where employees would utilize the spots in the back.
either way, all access will be ADA compliant.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Except for the size of the parking space.
Correct, well,
Right.
yeah, that's.
We're federally compliant, but
Not township.
not township.
Sorry, can you just clarify, please, though, how many ADA spaces for patrons and staff are there now, and how many will there be in the new plan? Is it the same?
It's the same. I actually don't know the total, but there were 6 before and I replaced it with 6 for these ones that we relocated, and then everything else is the same. So there's been no change in the number of ADA accessible parking stalls.
But there is a net loss of overall parking spaces.
Yes, correct.
Of 10.
10 spaces.
10, right?
Yes.
121 to 111, I believe.
Correct. Yes, correct. Sorry.
We added some charging stations, even though we didn't think we had to,
Yeah.
at the recommendation of, I think, Topology.
Yes, correct. So there's a little confusion with the new EV ordinance for the state, whether or not we're reducing number of total parking spaces. So do we need to propose any EVs? Do we need to propose 1 for the spaces we're restriping, or 4 for the total number of parking spaces that existed on site? We've agreed to just propose 4 to not disrupt the apple cart on that.
Will the loss of the 10 spaces matter? Are those spaces typically used on a performance
So
night?
We don't think so. You all know how parking for paper mill works. People are parking all over the place. So we think that's sort of a rounding error in the scheme of how it's going to work here.
So, you want me to go through the numbers of the parking in the area?
Yeah, if you have, just so you know, they have them.
So as I noted, the parking calculation requires 381 parking stalls. There are 274 striped parking spaces in the immediate vicinity of Paper Mill. That's the lots that are part of the subject application and the lots across the street. Those are just striped parking spaces. There's also available parking for 422 once the valets and the stacking takes place. And then in addition to those, there are parking areas in downtown Millburn that are utilized by Paper Mill, which total 792 parking spaces. So that's a total of 1,066 striped spaces and 1,124 total available with the stacking, which greatly exceeds the 381 required spaces for the calculation.
Okay, a little idea on the order of magnitude of how many spaces are available in the area. And of course, many patrons are eating downtown and parking in the decks or in my office building at 75 Main Street, usually kind of full on theater night, people parking and walking in other places.
Right, and there's also shuttles available as well.
I was gonna ask you, so there's shuttles to the paper mill from the decks?
Yes, Paper Mill employs 2 shuttles that run from downtown Millburn to the theater. There's no changes to the site access under proposed conditions. The same driveways are proposed to remain. There's an existing roundabout drop-off that's proposed to be replaced with a dedicated drop-off lane. That drop-off area is 85 feet long. It's located across this new courtyard area instead of the pull-in roundabout area that was there before. There were some comments made by Sergeant Barbosa regarding regarding those shuttles that we just mentioned and pedestrian access. So we met with him on site in, I believe, the end of May or perhaps early June, and we just discussed some changes to the crosswalk area and the shuttle area that he was comfortable with accepting. So we're going to incorporate those as part of our plans, and he had no further comment after we made those changes. So there's going
We
to be
actually did a little memorandum with him to summarize the changes, and I put that in the record with the submission, and the board and the public have that.
Yes,
Correct?
there's a sketch on record of the changes that are proposed and accepted by Mr. Sergeant Barbosa.
Okay, so there's some meetings on pedestrian safety and traffic safety with the town's representatives on that issue, and you believe you satisfied him?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a proposed pedestrian plaza that's just between the theater and the carriage house, and also along the Brookside, along the riverside. So that'll be for pedestrian movement. There's, like I mentioned, the drop-off area. This is protected with bollards, both on the Brookside Drive side and also on the parking lot side, interior of the site. There's bollards for pedestrian protection. So this improves pedestrian circulation and also provides some seating areas for patrons. Just want to touch on lighting. So we're proposing lighting fixtures interior to the new courtyard area and for the new building facade. These include both or a multitude of different sources. There's building mounted lights that project light out. There's mounted light poles. There's lights within some of those bollards that I just mentioned. There's decorative light bollards, and there's lights along the bench seating to delineate where the edges of some benches are located. The average foot candles permitted is a half a foot candle to 1 foot candle, or we're proposing 3.4 foot candles. So that's a waiver or variance.
Waiver, site plan waiver.
The reason for that is this is a pedestrian plaza. It's not just a parking lot or just a building exterior. It's we want to have more visibility for pedestrians milling around and safety and things like that. So this, while it exceeds Millburn standards for an outside lighting area, it's very common. The Illuminating Engineering Society, the IES, recommends a range of 1 to 3 foot candles for building exteriors. So the half a foot candle, 1 foot candle is already kind of low of a requirement as it is. So we believe that it's that this is acceptable design.
So we're actually over on some of the lighting standards, and
Correct.
it's your judgment that they're necessary for safety reasons,
Correct.
okay? Any issue from the engineering department on that?
No.
With those design waivers that we've sought?
No, it was mentioned by topology, but there were no considerable issues raised.
Okay.
Are those lights going to be on 24/7? Are they going to be turned off after performances? What's the timing of the lighting?
They are going to be turned off after performances. I think, are we going to get into the timing?
Yeah, I think we may have had testimony or it could have been discussion. That seems like a reasonable condition of approval because we're cognizant that there are neighbors there. We're cognizant that there are neighbors. We're thinking about an hour and a half. They're going to be on timers, an hour and a half after the facilities close down. Might be appropriate, and I think that's something hopefully we can, maybe in some detail, work out depending on what's happening
Good
there.
question. In the back though, where there's a river, is there gonna be lighting there?
Yes, so there's a few pole-mounted lights along the river, as well as some uplights that shine into the trees for decorative purposes. So there will be 3 to 4 fixtures along the river walk. Correct.
And this is, I don't know if this is for you or not, this gate that's supposedly keeping people from going into the river, is it gonna look like that or the fence?
I don't believe it's going to look exactly like that. There is.
Unless it's glass, it's probably not gonna prevent you.
No, there's consideration about what material we want to use, but we are looking to upgrade the guide rail protection along the retaining wall. That's probably not part of this specific project. There's a number of other projects going on at Paper Mill, but that is in the works. We have not decided on an appearance of it.
Anyway, so the lighting and the timing back here, I might wanna suggest that stays on because there's water there and it's a pedestrian walkway. Is there neighbors back there that would
There are.
There are neighbors across the river that would probably not be
happy about lights on?
too thrilled with that. There's probably going to be some baseline security lighting that may remain
Right, just to
on
keep people from falling in.
at a very low level. I'm not entirely.
I mean, there's
Sure,
plenty of places
that's
in
what-
Melbourne where the river's not protected, or people aren't protected.
Okay, well, we'll make it.
Well,
That's going to have to be a point of discussion.
Thanks.
Sorry, 1 second. And then the landscaping. So along with the courtyard upgrades, we're proposing several new planting beds and landscaping areas throughout the site. So there's a few planting beds located along the eastern side of this building. By the entryway, there'll be a opportunity for planting beds in and around the carriage house. There's some existing plots that are going to be reused in some new areas and along Brookside Drive. So wherever we're able to propose some new landscaping, we're looking to propose 15 new ornamental trees and then a couple hundred shrubs and ground cover, totaling a total of 274 new plants for the
Have you reached
area.
out to the environmental commission about that?
Yeah.
Have you spoken to them?
I don't believe they've issued us a letter with our application, but we can certainly communicate to make sure the species are all
I
acceptable.
think they have some requirements regarding species that they would like to see, so circle back with them.
Absolutely, no
And then the
problem.
forester as well, right?
Well, that's obviously gonna have to be reviewed,
Yeah.
but from that standpoint, yeah, to see that, it makes
To that point
sense.
with the uplighting, are there any other public properties in Melbourne Township that have uplighting in the trees? Only because, again, the birds, I'm sorry, I'm not listening to that.
I'm not familiar, so we can look into that. That's really an aesthetic choice, so it's definitely not, a safety thing or anything like that. So we can work with the professionals on maybe not having that if we're not comfortable with birds and things.
Something to think about, especially during migrations.
That'd be something I think if the board designates somebody, their
right.
planner to
Yeah, the forester.
evaluate
The forester may have some thoughts.
bird safe lighting, whoever you want to designate, when we get to that level of detail.
Thanks.
I'll quickly touch on stormwater management. We're not a major development, however, we are increasing the impervious coverage by 3,381 square feet. So there's a requirement within Millburn to provide some sort of storage to address that, and we've agreed with Ms. Callahan to manage that.
So there'll have to be some sort of detention pits or something
There'll be
to
something under the
handle
plaza.
a minor amount of
Probably-
additional water.
It'll probably be roof water from the new carriage house is really the main source of new impervious, so we'll we'll do something under the plaza that addresses that.
Okay.
We already talked about the flood application, so I believe that's the end of my testimony.
Okay, I just want to come back with a cleanup. We did have those design waivers on site average, maximum, average to minimum ratio, and maximum to minimum ratio. We're exceeding on all of those. So is your testimony about having sort of additional lighting for safety purposes cover all four of those areas where we're seeking the design waivers?
That covers average and average to minimum, so I'm
Okay.
comfortable with that. Regarding maximum and maximum to minimum, I mentioned that there's going to be lighting within the benches. So there's benches that go along the front and the side of the building, and those have strips of light in them. And just because the way that lighting is measured on the ground, so it's reading the bulbs in that strip lighting. So the only spikes we get in our analysis or for the maximums is from that. Everywhere else where there's actually regular site lighting is compliant. So it's really a technical, just a modeling issue. It's not
Okay.
actually proposed to have significant maximum lighting.
It's just underneath the benches, so really de minimis and related to the aesthetic improvements on the benches. Okay, and then one thing we didn't talk about was just the buffer requirement, which we noticed we're not really changing much, but can you just on this board show that there's a requirement of a buffer of 20% of the average width and 50 feet, and then you need a stockade or wood fence, and it expresses a concern for the neighbors in the back. What do we have now, and what's proposed?
These are all existing variances. There's three lots on the northern side of the property, lot 10, lot 11, and lot 12. Those have a requirement of a 50-foot buffer to them, which is under existing conditions is not there. And there's also an allowance for a stockade fence there in the ordinance, which is existing. So there's an existing stockade fence for lot 10. The setback there, 50-foot required. The existing is 20.8. Again, that's to remain with the fence. For lot 11, again, it's 50 feet required. 24.1 is existing to remain with the stockade fence. And then for lot 12, 50-foot required. There's a separation of 44.9 feet that's existing to remain. Now, the stockade fence doesn't go all the way to the road, to the property line, but if it did, it would be blocking the site triangle, so that would be unsafe. So there's a stockade fence that terminates along the buffer for lot 12, but that's existing condition to remain. I think it'd be unsafe to extend it to the right.
Okay, so we called it out. That's not in the area of the improvements.
No.
Really, but we called it out to be on the safe side. I want you to go through, and Mr. Keller will touch on it. So we talked about lot 15, front yard. We have these side yard setbacks, Adam. That's because we're going over the property
We're
line,
straight on the
right?
property
Can
line,
you show the board where that is? That's the carriage house.
That's
I think the board
carriage house.
appreciates there's supposed to be lot setbacks. We believe when the town makes the purchase, they're going to own all three lots. They're going to remove the lot lines. But this is a technical variance. It does exist, but it's really due to the split ownership today between Paper Mill owning lot 15, but that's going to go away pretty soon.
So your D variance exists on 15, correct, for the use?
Yes, because it's R6.
Right.
It's R6, so we've conceded for these purposes that the restaurant is a principal use. Can make some arguments, it's really subordinate and accessory, but to simplify matters and to move this along, we're saying, look, it's a principal use. It's a modest, they're not going to be used at the same time at full tilt. But yes, the restaurant expansion into what's now the orphan R6 parcel that used to have a house on it that now has a parking lot that's not connected to other R6. I'm making some argument along the way. I appreciate that latitude, Chairman, to help explain the application to you and to the public. So yes, the carriage house is a restaurant. We're considering it a principal use for these purposes. It's going into the R6, and restaurant is also not permitted in the CD technically. but been there obviously for a long time.
Sure. Any further?
Okay, we have a little bit on lot coverage. We're over already. We're going up by 444 square feet.
Yes,
Correct, Adam?
correct.
You know, overall,
Yes. That's the carriage house side?
yeah, that's on
Side,
the,
rather?
that's on lot 15. So we're going from 64.7 to 66.1. So also kind of, there are quite a few variances. We believe many of them are quite minor. Okay, building height. Lot coverage on lots 13, 14, we're going up there from 71 to 73.6%. Correct, and that's obviously the dark orange areas are adding some more footprint, so our lot coverage is going up over there. Okay, we talked about the front yard setbacks, we talked about the rear yard setbacks, and on lots 13 and 14, we also have sort of the issue with, that was
That's the setback based on the height.
right,
So
the side yard setbacks based upon the height.
yes.
Correct, okay. I think we covered just about everything in the notice from the civil engineering side. Chairman, so I think we're done.
Okay.
Can I ask
Any
one more-
questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
just one more question, and I hope this isn't too obscure, but the glass, I'm a little concerned about the glass. Is there gonna be reflection on that at any point that may impact the neighbors? Like just from the sun? Is
Right.
there like,
I might
has
ask Mr.
anybody
Kim to
looked
answer
into
that.
that?
Don, you want to try that? Come on back up.
Sorry, yeah, I guess, yeah, I should.
No problem.
Board Member Trude's concerned about glass reflection
Will the
on the
sun
neighbors.
reflect into
Yes.
that glass onto
Very good
anyone,
question.
any neighbor?
Yep, glass selection is an art and a science, is very important. It's important for birds, it's important for reflection, heat gain,
Yeah.
transparency. It is something that we look at all of those things when we pick the ultimate glass. So make the ultimate decision on the glass. So we will do that once we get to that
So
point.
as best as you configure that will not create a reflection onto somebody's house that could be.
Absolutely,
uncomfortable or-
yes, we will endeavor to do so.
Any other questions for Mr. Westerberg on the board? Anyone need, oh, sorry.
I have a question. You said you spoke to the police, we were talking about the roundabout, it's now a drop-off lane. So there was a sketch that was submitted to the record?
Yeah, that was with my May 31st submission.
That's fine, we have that then?
You have that. I have
I
it.
have May 28th.
Well, that's the letter. I think I submitted on May 31st. Right. And do we have?
No, it was at least a May 3rd, yes.
Okay, so we have a letter dated May 31st, and there was an attachment to that, right?
Yes, so the sketch was attached. There's a crosswalk exhibit that was submitted as part of the letter on dated May 28th.
Do you have that, Ms. Davit? Letter from me dated May 31st, with a letter to Sergeant Barbosa and an exhibit that's attached.
I've seen those. I think I've seen it.
Vague recollection?
Yeah.
It's on Paper Mill Playhouse letterhead, if that helps. And you search through.
You can,
That looks, yes, that's there.
that is it. There should be an exhibit that got attached to it.
Something like this.
That I don't recall.
Yeah, I just had.
I actually have handouts of it. If you'd like me to pass
Okay,
it
yeah,
out.
let's mark it and let's hand it out.
Will there be any vehicular access to that courtyard, or is it strictly pedestrian?
Strictly pedestrian, it'll be blocked by bollards.
Okay.
They may be removable for the purpose of fire access or emergency access.
So we're gonna call this 813. What do you want to call this, Adam?
So this is a crosswalk exhibit, it's dated May 16th, 2024.
Crosswalk exhibit, and what was the date?
May 16th, 2024.
813.
Okay,
And this is it.
that could be on
John
me,
May
because I know the letter went in, there's a chance this exhibit didn't go, but we'll have to double check.
Let's take us through this real quick.
Okay. Adam, do you have it, or you want to use this one?
I'll use that one, I gave all mine away now.
Okay, 813.
So this was in response to.
See if we can tack this up. We do that.
Yeah, I just have an extra clip.
Okay. Okay, so we got comments from Sergeant Barbosa, he wasn't particularly happy. And you met with them and you're able to resolve your differences as far as you know. And we sent them a letter after saying, here's what we talked about and agreed to, and I think we got an email back from him saying he was okay.
Yes, correct. So,
Okay,
you want me to go through the two thrusts of it?
yeah, briefly if you can, so we can try to get to our next witness.
Sure, sorry.
No problem.
The crosswalk is moving about 30 feet to the north, just to allow for better pedestrian access directly to the theater. This was a response to Mr. Barbosa. He didn't want the existing crosswalks that's there will be cutting through the drop-off area. So we moved it outside of the proposed drop-off area.
Arguably a conflict, bringing the pedestrians into the bus drop-off.
Yeah, correct.
Right, okay. So
Just arguably.
It's there now, but it's a little bit of a different setup. So we're alleviating the situation that's there.
the best you're gonna get out of me, arguably. Okay, so you showed him this and you moved the crosswalk?
Yes, and then we just, he wanted more access for the shuttles, so we lengthened it.
Okay.
So,
And we also had an agreement that the shuttles are not gonna do any more turnarounds, they're gonna
Yes.
go up Brookside and loop back around. There was some discussion of that, because this was a chance to sort of look at overall traffic and pedestrian safety, and since we have an application pending.
Correct.
Right, and some agreements were made, to direct, and I think that change has already been implemented.
Correct.
Correct, where the shuttles are not gonna endeavor to turn around, but they'll loop around the street.
right, they no longer go south back down Brookside. They continue north and utilize Glen Ave to get back to downtown on the loop.
Okay, so an interim improvement.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board, for Mr. Westenberger?
Just my notification, topology is who?
That's your planner
Okay.
who wrote a 25-page report.
Just you referring to it in the record, I want to make sure.
No, fair enough. They wrote a very extensive
Yeah, that's what
report on this. The board's planner, they had a couple of technical issues in there about, picking out the benches and that sort of thing. Those are obviously agreeable to benches, trees, I think a couple other items. No issues with those comments.
Any questions from the audience for Mr. Westenberger? Come on down. Name and address.
I'm just gonna get this out of your way.
No, Jeff Feld, 11 Alexander, just some clarification. Because we didn't see, can you just point out for the public where the 4 EV charger stations are going to be located? Because which parking lot, or just identify which parking lot they will be in?
Sure. We're planning on locating those adjacent to the carriage house. There's 4 spaces that pull in towards it here.
Which was, I guess, in lot 15.
This is on lot 15.
Required. You talked about an application being submitted to the DEP. You used the word "we." I have problems when we use the word "we" because right now, some of the property is owned by Paper Mill and some property is owned by the township. Can you tell me who submitted the application to the DEP? Was it signed by both Milburn, and was it both signed by Paper Mill, and when was that submitted?
They were signed by both entities, the Township of Milburn and the Paper Mill Playhouse, as the owners of the 2 lots, and it was submitted in May. I don't have the exact date.
But
Around May 8th.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Any other questions? Come on down.
Arjun Rao, I live at 246 Glen Avenue.
Spell your name.
ARJUN, last name RAO.
Spell your address.
246 Glen Avenue. One of the 3 houses that are right next to the north side, the back side parking
The
lot.
stream?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question
Can you point
about,
that out? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Why don't they have them pointed out so they know exactly where
right,
This one? Yeah. Tax lot 9?
Yeah, that's right. I had a question about the lighting upgrades of the parking lot. Will any additional lights added there also be on timers? And also, will any measures be taken to ensure like the directionality of the light doesn't flood into backyards?
Yeah, absolutely. So the lights will be on timers. We need to work a little bit as to when events end and then subsequently when lights turn off for safety. So they will be on timers. We're going to work out the details of that. And then lights will all be, or proposed fixtures will all be pointed away from the property lines. Our goal would be to have 0-foot candles at the property line. So that would be no illumination crossing off of our subject property.
Any other questions?
And that goes for the uploaded trees too?
Yes,
That's not gonna spill?
no, they're pretty low level. We'll do what we need to do to make sure that they don't spill.
I'm Sorrel Reef, 9 Brookside Drive.
Your question?
Yes, this is long-standing, but we live right across from the theater. And we're concerned about the buses that since you're talking about the shuttles,
Mhm.
there's a lot of commotion and even against the ordinance for idling, even for buses that go along. And I want to know if there's anything in your plan about having the buses just do a drop off and then leave and go, I don't know where,
Yeah.
but go somewhere else. Because I see many times people coming out of the lots, or, both lots, the 15 and the other lot. There was a crash about a year ago right in front of my house. And then the people, there's a lot of elderly and a lot of infirm people. And
So your question, ma'am?
my question is, are there safety plans in place and other ideas about the flow of traffic? Do you have anything?
Yeah, I know that we were speaking with Sergeant Barbosa. He is one of several officers that operate during theater performances to ensure that pedestrians are moving and vehicles are moving. So we took his input on the design of where the crosswalks would be, where passenger vehicles would be, to help improve, since he is a member of a group of people that would be directing traffic. We wanted his input, and so we took into those considerations. So, and then in addition to that, the new drop-off area we have is trying to get people definitely out of the flow of traffic of Brookside. It's a larger area than that's there today, so that cars can get out of the way, take the time to make the drop-offs they need to, like you said, for elderly people and things like that, and then pull away and continue on Brookside Drive. So there's a larger area for vehicles to make a drop off safely directly onto the sidewalk. They can go right into the theater, under the carriage house. And so those areas we believe have been upgraded from the current condition.
And another corollary to that is buses tend to sit for sometimes in the winter, especially for the duration of the show, and they idle.
Yeah.
And since our properties are very close to the road, it reverberates into the home. So I don't know if that's anything that could be included into the plan for the flow.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that at the other hearing.
Yeah.
That's against town ordinance.
Yeah.
So I'd call the police and they'll have them shut down.
Yeah, that would probably be the school buses dropping people off. So we can ask nicely, but honestly, probably calling the police would be the best alternative since
They'll have
it's
to
against the
enforce
ordinance.
the ordinance.
Yeah, because there are those.
Just like sitting at a school waiting for a child, you can't have your engine on.
Yeah. That's the aggravation, and some of them are the large coach buses.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have an additional question.
Please come forward.
Patricia Wolf, 11 Brookside Drive, right next to my neighbor.
Yes.
Buses parking, idling the whole show right across the
Is there
street.
a question?
Our question is, where can the buses go after they drop the people off?
So this is referring to
All performances.
well, for the shuttles that would typically operate during a
I'm talking
performance.
about the buses, the big ones.
So that would be more for the schools that come and visit during the day for
No,
performances.
that would be like, senior groups coming in to see a matinee or an evening performance.
Okay. I'm not sure where they go. There's nowhere on the existing property for them to stay during typical evening performances. I didn't know that was.
And matinee, especially matinee. Okay, just
sorry, I
a
don't
question
know.
to think about, where can the buses go once they drop people off? And they are people are walking across the street and on the sidewalks and stuff during drop-off time and after performances, and then you have a cacophony of buses and cars trying to get out and people trying to get to their cars and the buses
We
are.
need to keep it to questions.
I'm sorry.
You gotta test it.
I'm sorry, my
Thank you.
question is asked. Okay.
Sure.
All right.
We hear you.
If you have a question, come on down. Name that as the record, please.
Yeah, Douglas Miller, 35 Brookside Drive. I had a couple questions about lighting. You said that the lighting in the courtyard, the foot candles, were greater than what the town permits, correct?
Yes.
The architect mentioned that they're going to really enliven the space with these glass facades on the carriage house and the playhouse. So all those lights inside the theater and the carriage house, won't they spill out into the courtyard as well and create a lot more additional illumination beyond the site lighting?
I don't know the nature of the lights inside the architectural building. My understanding is that they generally will not be spilling out through the glass. That the site lighting is preliminary provided by the lighting that's exterior, and there won't be a significant amount of lighting that escapes out into the courtyard.
How do you prevent light from leaking through a glass window?
So you can have the bulbs not directly exposed to the exterior, but rather lighting up interior wall spaces by splashing light onto them, and then those aren't as reflective to escape the building.
But the lighting inside will increase the illumination in the courtyard.
There
just
may
by
be
nature
some minimal increase to the lighting outside.
Okay. Is there any other plans for lighting in the parking lots? I looked at the site plan online, and the site lighting improvements are limited to the courtyard and the strip of access along the brook itself. Is there any plans for improving the lighting in all the other adjacent parking lots?
Yes, there's a separate project going on with Paper Mill where they're considering improving some of the lighting across the street, and also in the parking lots that are part of this application, just to improve the lighting there and to unify it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm concerned with the increase in illumination. There's been no documentation or information provided for that. And if it's part of this entire scope of project, the lighting, if we're going to light up the parking lots like a Walmart parking lot or a ShopRite, it would definitely change the public perception of that area, much more so than the conservative lighting that's in the parking lots now.
It would be part of an additional approval, so it would be under additional review from a different application.
So it would come back before the Board of Adjustment?
Or possibly the planning board.
I'm not sure.
I think that goes to what this overall impact of this entire project, in my opinion, I think.
Do you have a question?
Yes, okay, parking. You said that the parking is reducing the number of spots by 10, what is currently. Living directly across the street, I see the parking at every single event. It's over capacity as it is. Is there a fire lane provided on these plans?
We have spoken with the fire marshal, and he has not deemed the fire lane to be necessary.
So there's no fire lane on the parking lot. So you're eliminating the fire lane that exists now?
Correct. The fire marshal decided it was no longer necessary.
Okay. So with the increase in use of the carriage house and the increase in scale of the actual theater itself, there's going to be additional concessions, there's going to be more wait staff, more cooking staff, so that's more employees coming onto the site. So if we're reducing the parking by 10 and adding more staff, won't that impact the parking to a greater degree than what currently exists now?
The parking requirements generated from the township ordinance takes into that consideration. So the 3 spaces per, the 1 space per every 3 theater seats factors in the number of employees, the number of then guests attending as well.
But you're already, I think, 33 seats, parking spaces shy. So that could be a potential.
We represented that the adjacent parking areas and the parking that's provided in downtown is sufficient for the number of guests that are attending.
So with the increase in capacity of the carriage house, you're taking a 80-seat restaurant and upgrading it to 222-seat restaurant. So all those people that park downtown and go to a restaurant and then walk up to the paper mill, they'd be more apt to park at the paper mill itself and take up that extra 140 seats in the restaurant that are currently not available. Will that tax the parking lot and result in the parking lot filling up much more quickly, a lot more traffic milling around? Currently, the valet parking run out of spots, and they have about a dozen cars parked on Brookside Drive with their flashers going for the entire length of the performance. Is there anything planned to mitigate the increase in need for parking with a net reduction in spots?
Yeah, there may be additional people that were eating in restaurants in downtown and come eat at the Carriage House. The people that are arriving at a later time just for the theater performance may be directed to park in areas downtown, and then Paper Mill runs a shuttle service to the theater. So that would probably be reversed, where people that were previously parking downtown may be parking here first as they arrive early for performances. People that are arriving for just the performance may be downtown and then shuttled up. So they're more swapping, but it'd be the same clientele as today, because like I said, the number of spaces in the number of seats in the theater is not changing.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, for Mr. Westenberger? Go forward.
Beth Miller, 35 Brookside Drive, Millburn. I just had a question. So is the only time the restaurant going to be open with this 222 seats when the theater productions are happening on those nights, or do you think it will be open other nights as well?
So Mr. Stotts testified to this in the beginning, so it will be open on other nights. So they'll have separate events and performances. I don't know if I want to go into all that detail, but it will be open on other nights. The idea is that the theater won't be open, and so the required number of spaces for the parking spaces for the Carriage House is definitely sufficient, because there's not nearly as many seats in the Carriage House as there is in the theater. So just on nights when the Carriage House is open, there's more than enough parking.
Okay, but it's my understanding that there also is a possibility that those spaces might be rented out as well for rentals, such as for weddings and corporate functions. So wouldn't that increase the need for parking significantly?
Well, that would never happen during a theater performance. Okay. So the theater performance is the number one demand for parking.
I'm talking about when
any
the
wedding
dark
or a
nights.
corporate event or anything is a much lower scale, and there'll be more than sufficient parking for those events, because we believe there's sufficient parking for the theater.
Okay, all right, so you think that will cover it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just to try to clarify that point, if I may, so if all four of these separate rooms was used at once, we'd have 222 seats.
Yes.
Is what we testified to. So that's really only 1/5 of the theater. We're not saying all 222 are gonna be used at once, but on these other nights, so the theater, as Mr. Stotts testified, is gonna be in use around 190 nights a year. And on those nights, the Carriage House wouldn't be rented out for other sorts of events, as Adam testified. You know, the theater is the sort of number one thing. On those other nights, people may be coming, but you're talking about, if it was totally packed, 222, that's like 1/5 of the theater size. So I think Adam's testimony, will agree with me that, look, on those nights, there's really gonna be a lot of parking, available. So they're not used together. It's not 1 + 1 guy. For the notice, we added them all up. 1 + 1 equals, the total count. But it's not effectively gonna be used like that. You're following me?
I do, but also you're predicting outdoor seating, right?
I don't believe we are.
I don't think there's gonna be set outdoor seating.
So you're not gonna have any outdoor events?
We didn't say that.
So we're not adding yet another 100 seats.
If he's needing to speak, he's gonna have to come up.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
We're trying to address the concerns.
I get it, but.
Yeah, okay, all right, and just one last thing, you're gonna have a bar in there as well, is that correct?
So a bar,
Yeah, like, for drinks and what
I
have
think
you.
alcohol will be available.
Yeah, okay, so that might also increase the.
Wasn't there
parking.
currently one now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that may also attribute to.
I believe the 222 seats includes seats at the bar as well as seats at tables. It includes every different type of seat available in the restaurant.
Okay, so that's total.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We think there's a good buffer compared to theater night.
Any further questions for Mr. Westenberger?
Okay, Chairman, if I can call Mr. Keller, see if I can get him qualified.
Sure.
You swear from testimony about to give and transfer proceeding to true truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And you're testifying tonight as a planner, Mr. Keller?
That's correct.
And you've been recognized as an expert on more occasions than you can count.
On this board, the planning board, as well as about 100 boards throughout the state of New Jersey.
There are members of the public who haven't been here. You've testified before many boards as a planner, and your license is not only a planner, but also an engineer.
I'm a licensed engineer and planner, state of New Jersey, licensed since 1990 in both. And I've appeared before approximately 100 boards throughout the state of New Jersey and 6 different county court systems.
Okay, and you've been involved for a number of months in planning the project and helping to understand the variances and tonight to explain the variances and the relief that's
Yes.
necessary.
My firm's been working with the paper mill for over 30 years. We're not the engineers on this project. We are involved in the planning, and we've been involved throughout the process.
Chairman, I'll submit Mr. Keller as an expert planner.
Thank you. Credentials are accepted by this board. Please proceed.
Okay, walking away from me already?
Walking away. Done.
Okay.
It's done.
Your next exhibit is going to be 14 if you get to it, okay? You got to call it out,
Yeah.
mark it and call it out with the date, please.
This is A14. And it is both of these at some point. It is a copy of the engineering overall site plan that we've added some annotations to, just to help clarify, because I thought the proposed drawings are very clear, but what's difficult to see necessarily was the delineation between the lot lines. This is, it does not have a separate date other than today, since I'm dating it, 8/19/9.
Okay, so we're going to call it overall site plan with annotations, August 19th, 2024, for the record, A14.
Correct. So what we did on this plan is, first of all, we've delineated the differentiating line between the lot 15, which is in the R6 single-family residential zone, and lots 13 and 14, which are the remainder of the site to the north, where the paper mill and the entirety of the Kirby Carriage House are located currently. As was indicated, lot 15 to the right did have a single-family rental house sort of in a sea of pavement. Was under-maintained. When the property became available, paper mill bought it, and the first thing they did was demo the house because it was actually in very poor condition and dangerous to some degree. So right now, we have an existing non-conforming condition where we have a parking lot, commercial parking lot in a single-family residential zone. That was always a use variance, but that's what the site is today. And then the blue line is the rest of the property. You can see what I was also trying to stress was in the paper mill building itself, the blue area is the existing portion of the building that will remain unchanged. And then the green line is the existing front of house that's being removed off the property. That is being replaced by the areas that is shaded gray. And part of the where the building got smaller, we highlighted that in a slightly dusty yellow, sort of natural pavement color, to show that the building is actually moving back slightly to allow a little more room on that plaza. That combined with the fact that they're moving the circulation of the vans off of that area into a much safer area, so there's less conflicts with pedestrians coming out of the paper mill and trying to get into the buses. They've been now moved out of the way. So there's actually a little more breathing room into that terrace. And it's also been made more handicap accessible at the same time. The other thing that we did then is on the paper mill, on the Kirby house, you can see the green line is the portion of the Kirby house that's being removed.
The blue area, again, similar, is the portion that's to remain. And the gray area is the addition. What creates some of the confusion is that addition now goes over the property line, so it blurs the property line, and a portion of that restaurant is now on the single-family residentially zoned property, being R6.
Hey, Mr. Kelly, you insist on calling it the Kirby House.
Carriage
It's
House.
the FM Kirby Carriage House. I've been calling it Carriage House. Keep going with Kirby if you like.
I'm going to try to call it the carriage house. The last thing I wanted to show on this is the area of the two height variances necessary for the D6 variance. They're very small areas. One is, it's in the gray area that's shown, the gray little square that's shown above the portion of the front of the house is being removed. What they're doing is that covers over a stair bulkhead that allows for segregated and safe access up to the control room for the theater. And then their second one is about 136 square feet. I think the first is about 85 square feet. The second is about 136 square feet. And is the bulkhead that covers the stair that allows for workers to get up onto the roof where there is some mechanical up in that area and allows for maintenance of the roof. And that basically is nestled in immediately adjacent to the area where the building goes up to 59 feet. So it is nestled in both of these D6 height variance requested areas are shielded by the existing building, and they're fairly minimal in size and scope. So I just thought that was helpful to orient. And then the last thing we showed is that a significant portion of the paved area behind the building is being removed. As Mr. Westenberg indicated, the handicap spaces are being reoriented, but to allow for manipulation of grade so that you can get true handicap accessibility through the back of the building along the river. That whole area is being reworked through a series of terraces, paves, and landscaped areas to allow for handicap access along the back and a nicer river walk experience coming from the parking lot on the site up into between the building and into the courtyard and into the front of house. So I used to do a seminar for the former chair, Joe Steinberg's law class at Seton Hall, where we bring in cases and talk about them. This would have been a great one because we could make a lot of arguments on this one. I'm not going to because we're trying to go quickly, but we could talk about this for 3 hours at a seminar as to whether it's inherently beneficial, whether these are conditional uses, whether the accessory use, the restaurant's accessory or it's actually ancillary, whether it's a whole new use. But we've decided to kind of take a more simple approach and say, we're going to consider this on both of these lots to be D1 variances. We're not going to argue inherently beneficial, which was in the application materials, but we're going to basically see this as a Medici case where we're arguing site suitability on both of the properties to accommodate the restaurant use on that site. Obviously, the theater is a permitted use within the CD Cultural District Zone, so that doesn't need any variance relief. I would point out that, as was indicated, some of this discussion is moot because we did the survey for the town when they purchased this property. They have now entered into an agreement, as was indicated, to purchase lot 15. We have every reason to believe that once that purchase is completed, these three lots, which appear as two tax lots, three tax lots, but really two lots, they will be merged into one. It's our feeling that this only remained an R6 because there happened to be a single family residence. Otherwise, back in 2018, when we did our last master plan update, or possibly even earlier, that would have been taken out. And the fact that the primary use was more driven by a commercial parking lot than it was an R6, probably made a question mark, but I think because that single family dwelling existed, it was left in the R6. And we think that's probably fairly short-lived once this becomes merged.
So real quick, on lot 15, so you're saying lot 15, you're requesting your D1 use, right, for your primary use, or is that leaking onto 13?
Well, we've acquiesced to saying that even though the planning board deemed that it was an accessory use, even when they took the conditions away, and so you say, well, the restaurant has a legislative history of being considered accessory and ancillary to the principal use, and so we're expanding it, it's still ancillary. There's two hangups. One is you do have a section of the ordinance, even though it's approved, that says you shouldn't have more than one principal. Well, if it's accessory, then it's on one lot. We've decided it's a little easier and I think less suspect to a challenge if we just say, we need D1 for the restaurant. that
For
goes
primary
on
use
to-
areas.
And we also need it because it's gonna operate throughout the year. This Kirby house, the carriage house services the playhouse for 190 days a year, over 8 months. But it also services, currently they have murder mysteries, they have cabaret nights, they have other things. They want to continue to do that. And there have been weddings that have occurred on the site in the past, whether they're married on the stage and there's a ceremony after. So we want to continue that. So we've decided to argue that there's a D1 variance required for the restaurant as a separate use, and the on lots 13 and 14. And then there's also there's 2 principal uses on the same site. And then the second is that portion of that restaurant is on lot 15. So that's another use variance.
So your your Cs though, you have, I think it's like max front, min side, max lot, max door height, right?
Yep.
Those 4.
Yep.
And you're putting them on both then, 13, 14, and 15.
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
So you're requesting them then as one grouping on 13, 14, and then also on 15.
Correct.
Okay.
Different standards apply, so we
Right,
apply those
yeah.
standards, and I would point out that, the ordinance doesn't allow you to break it down. We've said the maximum height is 59 feet. In the areas where we're doing these additions, the building is much lower, and the setback for these, if that didn't exist, certainly not the front, because that's an existing non-conforming, but on these other areas, especially to the rear, these setbacks would probably comply if it wasn't for this big bulky thing popping up that setback. So if I'm looking at from the neighbor's property and I'm not seeing the taller back of house and over the stage, I'm seeing this building in the front. It certainly appears to meet the rear yard setback adjacent to my home. But again, it's a technicality and we want to sort of streamline it. So we're just saying, yeah, we need a D6 variance for those 2 areas, and we need rear yard setback for the building as to the east.
Got it.
So, and those C variances, C variances are interesting because when you apply for a D variance, if the board finds that you meet the criteria of the D variance, that the site is particularly suited, those C variances get subsumed up into the variance. So, but we can still make a very quick argument as to why they apply under C1 and C2, just to make sure we cover all the bases.
And by the way, also touch on that 1992 resolution and why there's a request to eliminate the conditions that were on that.
So in the 1992, I think there were 3 conditions that limited the use of the playhouse only to reservations on the night of performances. And I don't have it right in front of me, so I'm kind of winging it. But and they also basically said, that it couldn't be a commercial use unto its own, and it could only be used on those nights. In 2000, and the problem with that was the restaurant couldn't get a restaurateur to run it because they couldn't make a restaurant work on such a limited schedule, and it just basically floundered. And so I think at one point, Cafe Maine, Dan Canizio, might even have Tom Colicchio as the chef there. I mean, there's a celebrity chef cooking there, and they still couldn't make a run of that restaurant with that limited, it only being open those even 190 nights, because how do you buy food, et cetera, and then what happens in the 4 months in the summer when you're off, what do you do? So they came back in 2000 and they asked that those 3 conditions be removed, which the board agreed to do with the proviso that they come back on a regular basis to make sure that they're still not negatively impacting any of the neighbors. That seems to have dropped by the wayside. It was a surprise to Mike Stotts when we did some research, when the attorney did some research and found those resolutions. So, but I will say, at the time, it was always referred to as being an accessory use. And even when the board relaxed those conditions or removed them and said, this can be they said it can be a commercial enterprise now and it can operate all year long. They didn't send it over to the Board of Adjustment as a new restaurant use. They maintained jurisdiction, which led me to believe that it was considered to be an accessory use still, an ancillary to the primary use, and therefore jurisdiction was maintained by the planning board. However, I think in terms of the argument, we're happy because I think that it's a relatively easy demonstration that this site is particularly suited for the proposed two uses on one site. And lot 15 is particularly suited to have a restaurant leak into it by its proximity to the primary parcel. And we can still show the enhanced burden under Medici as to consistency with the master plan.
Sure.
So with regard to the, now that I've done most of my testimony right here, so with regard to particular site suitability, we believe that certainly starting with lot 15, it is immediately contiguous to the CD zone to the north where the theater and the carriage house are currently located. That site contains 111 car parking lot that will continue to service the needs of the paper mill. I don't know any other residences that would claim they're contributing to the character of the R6 neighborhood with 111 car parking zone. And certainly the parking that's on that actually allows for that building to leak onto it or encroach onto it with no loss in parking on the 111 car parking lot. The site is also contiguous to the Board of Education parking lot and sports field that are to the south, which are zoned for public use. So we're a little island unto ourselves. There are 4 R6 lots across the street, but we're contiguous to public lots with a little bit of contiguity to one of the residential lots on the land, but it really is an island unto itself. And certainly when you're walking there, it is isolated. And it is really, I think, appropriate to service as parking and for a better restaurant configuration for the paper to support the Paper Mill Playhouse. With regard to the 2 buildings on a single site, the site, especially as it will consist of 3 lots, can easily accommodate two separate structures. The configuration of the paper mill, it sort of does exactly what the current one does by pulling the building back, the main carriage, the main lobby space back, and allowing a little breathability. It still frames and cradles that area that is meant for people to come out and mingle during intermissions, go across and get a drink if they're not getting a drink inside. It allows for more of a milling space and a congregation space, and it's cradled by that space with the new addition. And as was indicated, there's sort of a dialogue as there's a replica of the old mill that now becomes the face of the south. It's almost as that it pulls apart and allows for this interstitial space to be a little more enlivened, but still protected from noise, et cetera, by these 2 building wings. And I would point out, in terms of going back to the sun coming down, you can have low emissivity glass. You have glass that's less reflective, but sun coming down is going to bounce back into that courtyard. There is no sun coming from the north, so you're not going to get any light that's going to be reflected anywhere towards the neighbors coming off the Kirby house. I'm sorry, the carriage house. So I think in terms of sun, I think that there's no impact, and I think this really reinforces. It's an opportunity to reinforce that safer, especially now the buses are gone, the pickup shuttles are gone. That safer congregation space that's created by that. So I think it's certainly this property can certainly accommodate having 2 principal uses on site. They almost touch as it is at that one point, but I think they will certainly almost appear as one, but it really does create a nice hierarchy of modern as it pulls apart, but it refers to the proportions of the carriage house. And I would say, by the way, the height of that dormer right in there is about the same height. So it's about 32 foot 3 inches. So that's why we came up with, the first thing I said was, why are we asking for a variance for 3 inches? And the architect, being kind of a purist, which I get, and said, well, that was the here, we extrapolated it over there. So,
Rich, on that issue, it's an existing condition as well,
existing
right?
condition, yeah.
And same on particular suitability, right? We have a cultural campus, so to speak, and that's existing. It's not materially changing. With this. I wanted you to just touch on those points briefly.
Yes.
Okay.
Cultural expansion of a cultural campus that already exists. Other areas. So I think we show particular site suitability Land use law says you can advance other purposes of the Land Use Act, and I'll go quickly. Public health, safety, and general welfare, we're actually making a safer drop-off area and safer and handicap accessibility. We're providing for a variety of recreational commercial uses to meet the needs of the community. The site is looking to strengthen its campus and cultural hub and gathering spaces within the community, the ability to continue and expand. Its cultural offerings such as I said before, murder mysteries, summer nights, Broadway stars, etc., provides an economic engine, not only for the Paper Mill Playhouse, but for the downtown businesses, and it strengthens the community at large. And as per Mike Stott's testimony, the township is actually pressing the paper mill to expand programming and derive further economic benefit out of this space. So again, this is supported by the fact that the township signed the Board of Adjustment application for the site plan with the exact same D&C variances that you have before you in their current form. And we think it certainly promotes a desirable visual environment. The D6 planning proofs come in the form of basically the Grosso versus Spring Lake case says that it's kind of like a Coventry Square case where you look at the purposes of the act as to how is the building appropriate, notwithstanding those deviations. And so generally, the purpose for having height variant ordinances is to protect air, light, and open space and not say overwhelm the neighborhood. And I think in these particular cases, that is not the case. So the new bulkheads provide safe, secure access to the control room and to the maintenance areas. They're nestled against the largely obscured by the existing taller back of house building. We think these deviations are de minimis. In fact, I don't think there's any real impact on air, light, and open space. That advances the positive criteria. If I look at all the negative criteria for both the D1, D6, and any of the C variances, we think they can be argued under C1 and C2. C1, where the shape of the property, the presence and location of the west branch of the Rugby River, and its associated floodplain or riparian zone, the existing topography, and importantly, the location of the lawfully existing structures on the property, including the existing buildings which drive the location of the proposed improvements, and the location of the existing parking lots both on our site. All that combines to create hardships or practical difficulties when upgrading the Paper Mill Playhouse without the need for variance relief.
The front yard and the rear yard setback areas, those are really driven by the building is there already. If
The
you're
building
gonna
is there.
make improvements, you got to work around the
And this
building.
exhibit is designed to show that all of our improvements are really biasing ourselves away from those either environmentally critical areas or the neighboring properties across on Glen Avenue. And they're going into areas where buildings have already existed. So as was indicated, there's really very negative, really minimal impact on the footprint. It's really a lot of this project is driven about creating, thank God, bathrooms, as well as better lobby space.
So Rich, what you did just there was, you talked about some of the reasons if we use the C1 and the C2 criteria, assuming the C variances are not subsumed. It's kind of, the rationale sort of stands on its own.
Yep.
Is that you're thinking and going over that?
Yeah, and I think that these are this represents a better planning alternative than a conforming application. That's the C2 criteria, the flexible C. We're advancing purposes of the Land Use Act. At the same time, the benefits outweigh any detriments, because I think the detriments are all pretty minimal. And again, it's really driven as there are areas that we think just simply work better. And part of C1, the front yard setbacks, but I think the height for the C1 variant, the C1 variance for height, and any other variances, I think we're advancing the purpose of the Land Use Act through safety, general welfare, better access for disabled, providing for that variety of uses, et cetera. So, and creating a better desirable and visual environment.
Rich,
So-
just for the record, can you list the specific subsections of section 2 of
Yeah.
municipal land use law that
Yeah,
I believe are furthered here, so
Yeah.
we have that on the record.
So under the purposes of the Land Use Act appearing at the municipal land use, the law at 4055 D2, there's, I think, 14 or 15 of them. We advance at least 4 of them. That's section 2A promotion of public health, safety, general welfare through those better access and amenities for disabled patrons. G is to provide for a variety of recreational commercial uses and open spaces to meet the needs of the community and all citizens. E is the contribution to the well-being of the communities. This is certainly this is an economic engine for our downtown as well as the paper mill, and promotes a desirable visual environment. I would point out the paper mill was last upgraded in the 1980s, and it certainly feels like that or earlier. So the benefits associated with these upgrades to the theaters, again, bathrooms, refreshment areas, merchandise areas, elimination of pedestrian bottlenecks, crowded corridors, congregation areas, improved drop-off with fewer pedestrian conflicts, new railing systems, handicap accessibility, functionality of the theater, private and secure control to the access areas. Part of this bump out on the side here facing the river is because there's no way to get from the front of the house and the ticket office to get behind the stage without going through the theater. So that allows for a safe segregated access so that the paper mill can function better. So I think these all justify the minor degree of variance relief for front, side, rear setbacks, lot coverage, the buffers, and the building height. The parking, it can't be overstated. If you built a 2,000 car parking space a lot here, they would come, but we don't want that. In fact, a lot of the complaints are really operational. I have come to the downtown. I'll give you my hidden parking spot. I park at the library. I go to dinner in the downtown. And if I'm running late, I hop on a shuttle bus because there's always shuttle buses waiting to take you up to the paper mill. At the end of the day, I walk back into the downtown, either have a drink, visit friends, or back to the library lot. I think that the parking is managed through the shuttle that goes to both the train station as well as to the downtown parking lots. And it starts running at 2, 3 in the afternoon and runs till after the show. I think that's what we want, similar to in malls where you try to create a circuitous path between stores because you want people to cross as many of the stores as possible. We want people to go to those restaurants. We want people to park in the downtown, take the shuttle bus, and we need to enforce that. And I think that actually the shuttle operations will be much improved through the new courtyard configuration. So I think that we've dealt with I don't see much in the way of any negative criteria that hasn't been affected. There's no substantial detriment, in my opinion, to the public good because there really are no material changes from what's happening today. The parking will continue. The continued use of that downtown and train station shuttle not only mitigates against any negative associated with parking shortfall, it's a benefit to the downtown business district. Most of the C variances are existing non-conforming conditions that will remain or are nominally being increased, or they are technicalities from that split lot condition that's going to go away at some point. Or the effects are mitigated by the placement of improvements relative to the existing development by keeping things forward and creating that courtyard type feel. The benefits of the carriage house expansion, by the way, they've got 4 different size rooms. It's not as though they can open up the doors and you can seat 222. The idea is if you have an 80 seat, a 60 seat, a 40 seat, and a 20 seat, you can tailor your space to the needs of that community. Or if you're having a murder mystery on the second floor, you can meet in the bar space where there's 20 bar stools, and then you can go upstairs for your murder mystery. So it's not that they're intended to function, and nor could the restaurant, the kitchen, even with this expanded kitchen area, be able to feed 222 people at once. And history has proven from the 1980s through now, you're not going to get 2 seatings at this restaurant. It just doesn't happen. So I think the benefits to the community is that it's a community asset. It's less about doubling the number of seats and more about providing right-sized spaces for any particular event. And again, the community feedback from the Township Committee was that they wanted this space leveraged as an asset with more use, as well as the theater space. Additional benefits not mentioned so far is the improved site lighting. And yes, if you measure the light right at the bar strip on the bottom, it's bright. But when you stand back, what's most important is our zoning or our ordinance for lighting is very strict, and it really focuses on uniformity. We're in great shape on it. We're over on uniformity. We're very low, and I think part of that reason was the township wanted to make sure that somebody couldn't do a lighting plan and not have to come back for site plan approval. So almost any plan is going to require, any new plan in the future is going to require some kind of deviation from that light standard, which means even if they did nothing else, any application would have to either come back to the Board of Adjustment or the Planning Board as part of a site plan or a variance application. So any time, when we look at that, when the engineer looks at the other lot, that's gonna be a time when engineering and either this board or the planning board will get another shot at it. So lastly, I won't go into all the purposes of the master plan that we're advancing, the goals and objectives, because we advance a number of them. But I will say that there is also a requirement that you reconcile the omission of the use from the zoning district, from the zoning ordinance, and that's the enhanced burden of proof. And I think that this one is fairly easy because the site was always contained a single-family house. Now that it doesn't, it's going under common ownership. We think the township committee is going to rectify that. They've made the move to purchase it. They've authorized this application to go forward with the variance relief. The belief is that once those lots are merged, that issue will have been dealt with. So I don't think it will be a non-permitted use for long, but for various reasons, it was important for the paper mill to move this forward with timing. It's very difficult to do this and work around your seasons. Timing issues as well as funding enthusiasm, it was important that we move forward. So I think that we meet. There's no negative impact to the neighbors, which can be mitigated either through measures that have already been made or some reasonable conditions on timing and things like that. And then otherwise, I think we've certainly satisfied both the positive and negative criteria, and we ask that you.
Okay, Rich, I just want to spend 2 more minutes.
Yep.
You looked at the 2018 master plan update and the 2021 vision plan.
Yep.
That's correct, and you're comfortable that the master plan has been considered. And,
Yep.
the goals are further, and those goals kind of mimic the things you've talked about, but you took a close look at the master plan. And
Master plan
part of
goals,
your analysis.
goals and objectives, page 43 and 45, goal number 1. Objective 1.04, encourage appropriate land uses that promote the character of the township as a suburb of the highest quality. I sat through all of the planning seminars where they reached out in advance of the 2018 master plan update. They reached out to the community at the Bauer Center. The number one thing that everyone kept citing is the thing they were most proud of in this town, and the thing I'm proud of every time I come out of a performance is the Paper Mill Playhouse. They love the proximity to the reservation. They love the fact that we had a movie theater, which we don't anymore. But the number one overriding source of pride for this community was the Paper Mill Playhouse's presence. So goal number 1, goal number 3.
Was the mall?
What's that?
Was the
No,
mall?
the mall wasn't
Yeah,
mentioned.
Was it sure?
Recognize and encourage township organizations and activities to strengthen business and social networks. I think that certainly does that. Maintain and enhance, goal number 4, maintain and enhance economic vitality to downtown and other business districts. Objective 4.03, leverage opportunities for new commercial development or redevelopment of existing properties where appropriate. And this is an economic engine for our downtown. When Moonshine opened up, Martini's was afraid it was going to kill their business. And we said it's going to lift, rising tide lifts all boats, you'll do better. And that's exactly what happens. This is not going to steal diners from the downtown. It's going to create more enthusiasm for people who can't get one of those seats at the Kirby. They're going to go downtown. If you're lucky enough to get one at the Kirby, you'll go there. But I think it's not, again, rising tide lifts all boats in our opinion, and it's been proven over and over. I don't think this is something that competes with the downtown. It will augment it, and will augment it for the other than the 190 days they support the theater. I think it'll be an asset to our downtown. So I think it's certainly consistent with the goals and objectives of the 2018 master plan update and the 2021 vision plan.
Okay, and then 2 last questions. Under Medici, we have to have this enhanced quality of proof. That's what the Supreme Court talked about on the negative criteria. You discussed that, and you're comfortable that this application meets that enhanced quality of proof because of the minimal detrimental impacts. It's an existing campus that's being, moderately changed.
And the fact that the township committee is acting now.
Okay, and then on the reconciliation part, Tici says we have to reconcile the fact that restaurants aren't permitted in the R6. And we talked about a couple of factors, that this is sort of an orphan lot. The township signed the application. they're buying the property, they obviously approve of this application, even though the zoning hasn't changed yet.
Well, past ordinances and past legislative documents have indicated that past boards have considered the restaurant to be an accessory use. And so I don't know that they have to necessarily consider that in this case, but the fact that they've signed off on this application with a freestanding restaurant, encouraging its further use, I think gives us helps us to reconcile the fact that the Township Committee is actively looking to remedy that situation that's been hanging around since that darn one-family house was sitting in the middle of a parking lot. And so I think it's being actively changed now.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that comprehensive report. Jen, that's it from Mr.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Keller?
This is not a planning thing, it's just an overall question I should have asked the architect. I can't believe no one's asked you, what happened to goldfish? What's going to happen to goldfish, the goldfish pond there? I mean, part of the area there, it's a very charming old town feel, and I understand we have to modernize because you can't be stuck. But part of it is, that's fun for children, it's fun for all of us to see that setting, so it's a serious question, what happens to that?
I
So
think
that's
actually,
all for
I think
kids.
Mr. Stotts was at that last time and said it would probably not remain in its site on the hood, and there won't be any sushi, I promise. But no, I think that I think what Mr. Stotts also said is a lot of little details, like the railings, like
Yeah.
and so they're not intending to throw all that brick away, it was said, from the existing facade. They're going to use it someplace else, but it's not going to go into the facade that is a replica. But they want to use that elsewhere, and what they can't use, they will put on the market as salvage. But those little details, we haven't decided yet. And so if you lobby hard enough, I suspect Mr. Stotts will consider that.
Any other questions from the board regarding Mr. Keller's testimony? Any questions from the audience regarding testimony? Please go forward. This is questions only for Mr. Keller.
Yes, Mr. Keller. Since the restaurant will be expanded, will there be, and there'll be commercial enterprises, weddings, this kind of thing. Who will be administering, who will be running the restaurant? Will it be the paper mill? Will it be a private corporation? And if it is private corporation that maybe makes a bid or comes in and runs the restaurant, will they be responsible for the increased sanitation and possible rodent population that could expand due to a restaurant being so close to residential areas?
I don't have the answer to that. I think Mr. Stotts indicated last time they'd like that flexibility, but there's no intent to turn this into a wedding. But they'd like some flexibility to program that. And there have been weddings that occurred, and most people have not known that there was 18, 20, 25 people there for a wedding.
Not only weddings, like if a restaurant came in and they wanted to rent out and create their own restaurant within there, would there be an agreement to do that? And if they do that, who will be administering and watching over how that's taken?
I don't know the answer to that.
If you know,
I don't know the
let
answer.
Mr. Stotts take a look. Mr. Stotts, any current intent on that?
No, Paper Mill intends to operate the restaurant. as we
That's really
currently
my
are.
question. Yeah, and
Yes.
so all the responsibility.
It will follow Paper Mill.
Okay,
They've got a brand to protect.
yeah,
That was the question.
yeah, that's the question.
Again, Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. I want to thank you for your presentation, because you could clarify a lot of issues and other issues. But I just want to understand a few things historically. When did you say you've been involved, but when did you get involved in this cultural campus expansion project? And specifically with the orphan lot, because I think that a lot of the confusion is coming from lot 15 based on the discussion, because it's in a different zoning area. Could you clarify that issue? Well, when did you personally, your firm, get involved in this expansion issue?
We didn't get involved in the expansion issue until December of 2022.
22?
Yep.
All right, because my concern is Paper Mill acquired lot 15.
And I think, actually, I should double check that, 'cause I think our job numbers go by date.
Yeah.
I think we actually did some ancillary sort of things. So
Yeah.
it may have been actually 2000.
No, because my concern is now, we're talking about a gap period. The Paper Mill acquired lot 15, I believe, in early 2023 or
We
2020.
closed in April or so.
Yeah.
Mr. Stotts testified on that.
Yeah,
Closed.
and based on the zoning, they demolished the single residential house.
The question for him
A
is,
single residential house. Is your testimony that for a year or prior till the township committee approving this acquisition, the current owner, which is the Paper Mill Playhouse, is complying with current zoning law by tearing down and operating an expanded parking lot during this gap period? Because I think your testimony was, a lot of these issues that we're talking about will be cured if, remember, if the township committee approves the acquisition of this lot and there's no litigation challenging what they do. I'm just saying, during this period of time, did the paper mill comply with the
You're
law?
asking for his a legal opinion? sir?
No, I'm not, no, it's a planning, because he was talking about,
But I will say from planning's perspective, I get in trouble with this because I own a surveying company.
Yeah.
And I get in trouble when I say lot lines are imaginary. So they are real, so they're called real estate.
oh, yeah, I got a surveyor over there too.
But we don't see them, in this case, you won't see that line delineated anywhere. Because whether the property stays as, through a complicated arrangement, stayed as two owners or a state that comes as one owner, we put in the proofs to allow for that building to cross the property lines. And so I think we've satisfied the proofs in support of why we think this is a good
Going
application,
future,
regardless of who owns what lots.
that's going in the future, I'm saying today. Because I like to go talk to the tax collector, because you're saying that surveys mean nothing for 2022. I mean, I just want to get more, my real specific question is for a year, has the current owner, which is the paper mill, not the township, have they been complying with the local zoning law? If you think that's a legal opinion, you can't answer it, don't answer it. You just say
I
that.
also don't think it's germane necessarily to the planning purpose.
I think it proves, but there's
You
other
can
issues that
say
goes
we
on.
haven't received a violation notice from the zoning officer on that. It was historically used as a parking lot. We don't think it makes a difference, so
Well,
we
we also
appreciate
heard-
the question.
We also heard neighbors were just told by the chairman about an hour ago that they should complain to the police about the idling buses.
any further questions from the audience for Mr. Kelly?
Doug Miller, 35 Brookside Drive again. I have some questions. I don't know if they're specifically for Mr. Keller, if he's the best person to address them, or Mr. Stotts, or one of the other experts that have.
Stotts, why don't you come
Yeah, why
up?
don't you come on forward?
Come on up,
in case
Mr.
you gotta
Stotts, so
tackle
that we
this.
don't have to scream. Mr. Stotts, you understand you're still under oath from the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So there was some mention of outdoor entertainment and dining this evening, but I haven't heard any real testimony about it, and what the hours of operation are for the new expanded Carriage House restaurant. That's my first concern, that there was no notice and none of the documentation spoke about outdoor entertainment or outdoor dining. Can you answer that question?
Yeah, it's consistent with what we currently do, and have over the last several years with the Brookside Cabaret and other things. We try to take advantage of the nice weather and moved our operation outdoors. I would say that even last week, we had 2 events outdoors, and both of them were done by 9:30 p.m. So what we want to do in the future is consistent with what we're currently doing, which is in the nice weather, people like to be outdoors. And whether it's for dining or we have a piano bar out there, we would like to be consistent with that practice. We are proposing that any outdoor activities, they all move in by 11 p.m. and usually they don't even run to 11 p.m. And that the Carriage House 9 times out of 10 will close at midnight. We're not looking to greatly expand the operation. We're not looking to turn it into a wedding venue. We are not looking to compete with the Pleasantdale Chateau or the Hilton at Short Hills. That is not our business. We don't want to do anything that's going to threaten our nonprofit status, and that would be a very commercial enterprise. We want to do things that enhance the overall experience of coming to Paper Mill, consistent with what we've been doing in the past few years.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the improvements to the paper mill are much needed, especially in the front of the house. I'm just concerned about that there's no real testimony or documentation about the hours of operation. You want to say 2 hours after the last show ends. So I know you've been very gracious and we've been communicating through email, and you gave me a list of hours that you plan to be open, what hour times you plan to be closed, what days of the week. Has that been shared with the board? Is that going to be part of the resolution?
It has not been shared with the board, but if they would like it, I can share it with them if it's germane to this application.
So that will be part of the submission? Okay.
We would certainly entertain some reasonable hours. I think we had talked about midnight
That's what I
for
just said,
closing
yeah.
down, and then, have nothing after 11 PM
Outdoors.
outdoors.
Yeah, the way the Carriage House is operating now is fine. It's, very discreet performances, the murder mysteries, the trivia night, all those things are great. And, it says your intention, you are the director of the paper mill today. The paper mill has its ups and downs over the years. A different director might come in and have a different vision for the paper mill. What if it's a 22-seat restaurant that's approved tonight with the bar and entertainment space? It's also going to be opened up as a commercial use for rentals. So effectively, it becomes a catering hall on basically half the year, because the paper mill is basically dark 6 months of the year. So what creates any limits as far as what the activity is there, what types of activities? If a different director comes in, what prevents like a wild bar type establishment or a DJ dance party or any of these things that have the real potential to have a negative effect? The previous resolutions.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Go ahead and answer.
Okay, so the mission of Paper Mill is to produce in the main stage. That is our main priority, is to program a facility that has 1,150 seats. That's where the bread and butter is, and that is what generates all of our revenue for the most part. The restaurant is an accessory use. We want to use it more often. And I can't imagine that in the future, someone is going to make that the priority over what is happening in the main stage. It would threaten the mission of the organization, our nonprofit status. And if that's what a future director wants to do, I think that they would have a lot of issues with the township, who are landlords. And they would have some sort of say in terms of the new vision for whatever that space is.
So if the board approves the changes in the expansion of the Carriage House, although those things you said would be unlikely, if they do happen and it's approved without any limitation, what prevents that from happening? I could go to the town and say, they're doing this at the paper mill. It's not what I thought the intent was. But if there's no limitations put on place now, what prevents something from happening in the future?
I don't know that this particular issue is going to be resolved with this body right now, because it's an operational decision, and all I can speak to right now is that Paper Mill's mission is to produce on the main stage. We have a restaurant, and if any of that was going to change, the nonprofit status of the organization might be challenged, in which case I believe everyone in the community would have some say in it. For losing the heart and soul of Paper Mill. I have to say, I believe that the township, as the landlord, would also have something to say about a significant change in the mission of the organization.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to put on the record is we had discussed refuse pickup. Currently, it's, in the middle of the night, the truck pulls up, the lights flare through my window, and you've graciously accepted to have the recycling and refuse changed to 7 a.m. or later. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And that's an agreeable condition.
Yes.
Okay, we're working on that.
We're already working
with the picker. Not so easy all the time with folks in that business.
Sometimes they make mistakes, but
Okay,
we're working on it.
And you're committed to
Yes.
changing those as a condition. We respect that in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Any further questions for Mr. Keller, or Mr. Stotts regarding the application?
Anything for the board?
I have a question for council, actually.
Sure, go ahead.
The neighbors comment about, can we define the operational limits of both the paper mill and or the restaurant? Seeing as how this applicant is seeking a variance on principal use, I believe that's correct. Can we, in our approval, ask the applicant to define operational limits? What is, to put in writing, what is the mission of the paper mill so that that stays solid? The mission of the restaurant so that it could be turned into a disco sometime? Is that in our purview?
Sure. I mean, we can absolutely put that in part of the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, we make it complies
We're
with that.
agreeable to hours of operation, we're agreeable to hours of operation outside. And to be clear, what Mike testified to a couple months ago is there's the 190 days or so when the theater is lit up and there's a performance. Nothing is going to change on those nights. Carriage House is really going to close down, except on 5 opening nights. On 5 opening nights, the people will come back to the Carriage House. That's the intent. But on those nights, there's not going to be both the restaurant and the theater operating after the show starts. I just wanted to make that clear. I think you appreciate
I'm
that.
specifically speaking to defining the purpose, the mission, and the use that's going to take place in both of those.
Okay, we would, I think it is a reasonable condition to try to work something. I don't think you can do it in a public meeting, but
No,
if the
I would
board's
furnish-
inclined to
furnish us-
approve,
Yeah. furnish us
we'll work with council to have some reasonable language. We understand the public's concern.
Anything further? Mr. Swan, anything further?
That's it.
Okay, then I will close the public portion of this meeting.
Chairman, can I make one closing comment?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, we have, we'll public comment.
They want to
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, you finish.
Everybody knows we need 5 votes. And I am requesting of the board, if after public comment, we're ready to vote, please let us know of any concerns, because this is a matter of major public importance. It's a multi-million-dollar project. And I had a case when I was about 6 months out of law school, and I didn't have this discussion with the board. And it was 4 in favor, 1 against. That's a denial. And I think that based upon the questioning and how the testimony has gone in, I feel fairly comfortable. But I'm asking the board members to let us know, because I'm going to request a vote. But we need everybody's vote. We're entitled to 7.
Upon resolution of the public comment, I will instruct the board to tell you where they're at.
We appreciate that.
So then you can make a decision whether or not you move forward with the vote.
We appreciate that.
Okay. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for public comment. So if you'd like to come down, please, we'll swear you in. You have to give your name and address. And I ask people not to be repetitive. So who would like to go first if there is any public comment?
You swear upon testimony
Yes.
not to give testimony to the truth, but not the truth.
Yes, I do. Jeffrey Phil, 11 Alexander Lane. I would just ask that you defer your vote until the next TC meeting, which is, I think, September 3rd, where they're going to vote on the acquisition, because most of the arguments in proofs are all premised on the approval of the acquisition. That's what they were saying about the merger, the offer and liability. Or you have to make that in the resolution about the condition that this is all premised on.
We would make a condition of approval.
That's my comment.
Yeah. Any further comment? Come on down. We'll swear you in, once again, name and record for the, name and address for record.
You swear upon testimony not to give testimony to the truth, whole truth, and the truth.
I do.
Name and address for record.
Beth Miller, 35 Brookside Drive, Melbourne, New Jersey. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the historic nature of this property. When I first came to Melbourne, one of the things that I was most excited about moving into this town, was to be near the Paper Mill Playhouse. And I was not only excited about that because it is a great theater venue and they do amazing shows there, but also because of its connection to history. And not only the connection to the history of New Jersey, but more specifically representative of this town and where it came from and the people that developed it and made it. And when I walk by that historic facade, that's what I think about, that's the legacy we leave that makes it a very special place. Now, I know that this particular complex, this cultural complex, might not necessarily be on the National Register of Historic Places. Maybe there's too many changes that have been made over time, but yet this historic facade still exists.
Let's be clear, this is not historic. This facility is not historic. It's not designated historic. It's not a historic district. It's not even a historic zone.
But it's historic in nature. It's over 100 years old. So it's not designated historic, but it is historic. Do you see what I mean?
Not really, but please
Okay.
continue.
Well, generally,
Age does not deem historic.
sure, something dates back to 1856. Most people would say in common conversation that that's historic. It might not have a plaque on it. It might not be a monument, but there is some connection to that history, particularly because of its connection to the paper mill. So I only ask you to just keep in mind that it's such a special place, and I wonder if it will be as special if that particular facade is demolished. Sure, we have to modernize. Yes, there are accessibility needs. We need more restrooms, but I can't help but wonder if there's a way to do that without really taking away the nature of what it is and making it less of a paper mill and what makes it so amazing and so great. So just something to keep in mind that I was hoping to share with you, because I don't want that history and that relevance to be lost as we move forward and we modernize, because that history is really an integral part of what makes it significant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment regarding this application? Please come forward. We'll swear you in. Name and address for the record.
You swear from testimony about the tonight's hearing to be truthful, to tell the truth.
I do.
Name and address for the record.
Douglas Miller, 35 Brookside Drive, Millburn, New Jersey. I happen to have the printout from the email that Mr. Stotts sent me regarding hours of operation. Who do I give that to for the record?
That can be submitted to Eileen.
Okay.
And we'll also require that to be submitted by the applicant as well.
Okay, very much. Thank you.
Sure. Any other comment regarding this application? Then I will close the public portion of this hearing. Board members, as mentioned, please let us know where your thoughts are and if you're in support or not of the application.
I'll start.
Please do.
So I love the paper mill. I think it's special, as many people have mentioned tonight. I just renewed my season tickets. But anyway, I do have a little bit of trouble with this application only, and I think they could be remedied tonight if there are more specific definitions outlined for the board. Specifically, I'd like the hours of operation written out for us and defines clearly for the board. What is the operation of the paper mill theater? What is the operation of the carriage house restaurant? That also has been discussed previously, like the limits of the operation, your mission statement, what is the paper mill intended to do for the foreseeable future, and the restaurant's operations tied to that of the theater plus some special events that perhaps could be defined. What is the various, I heard a lot of comment about lighting. When will the lights go on and off in various areas? Since you're asking for quite a significant front yard setback variance, I think that's important to people, particularly the lights. Where will the buses go? The schools, the charter buses, et cetera, where will they stay? I think that was left unanswered. And then it was important to me, I think the architect agreed to this, but I'd like it codified that the glass will not reflect onto the neighbor's property.
Hang on one second, I'm just writing some of this stuff down.
I can repeat it, sorry, Scott.
No, that's right.
Happy to hear what my colleagues say.
I'll go next here. So, I, as someone who grew up in town and third generation here, I always looked at the paper mill as an icon of this community. I realize some people think the mall is an icon, but this really is one.
It's true.
And, to have something like this in town, all night I stare at the Milburn Deli and people think that is like the standard bearer of Milburn. But this really is. And, modernization sometimes can come with a little bit of a bitter pill. And I understand that. While we try to keep the essence of what this facility is all about, at the same time, we do need to upgrade, we do need to modernize, we do need to make it more ADA compliant and all these type of things over time and make it safer, make it more viable. And I think that this is the type of thing that's necessary for our community. To have something that's been sitting around for 40, 50 years with no major improvement is a little outrageous for something that is as significant as it is. As mentioned by Regina, part of the condition of approval, assuming council and the paper mill would agree, of course, is the adoption of purchase made by the township of lot 15, the hours of operation and use, mission statement as it was mentioned. I know lighting was at 12 p.m., but I am a little cautious of putting hard numbers on that only because I want to make sure employees are out. That I don't want them to walk out to a dark lot. So, I just want there to be a little bit of flexibility there, but to certainly not have it run dusk to dawn. That's not acceptable. Also, with this bus situation that was mentioned, I think the best path for that would be to connect with traffic at Town Hall and see what can be done. I don't know if this board has the horsepower to sit and say, move the buses here or there. But I think that a conversation needs to be had with traffic and the police department as to where they should go, what they should do, and certainly this idling has to stop as it is a violation of town ordinance if this is the case. So with those things mentioned, I would be in favor of approving this application.
So I agree, the paper mill is an icon of this town and I am, overall supportive of this application. I do have some similar concerns and maybe a different perspective, and I'm not really sure the answers, but I'm gonna pose it to my fellow members and a question actually for our attorney. So the first one, operations. We have had many cases before us where restrictions in an operation seems maybe problematic to me. And what I wonder is, although we could and should perhaps put some limitations, is it more appropriate, given the town is the landlord, is it more appropriate as a lease amendment with the entity versus the zoning board making these kinds of distinctions? Because I think the town can do that in lease. But that's a question, I guess, for us. The second thing is for the attorney, I have a question. Everyone, I think, even in the testimony, we talk about the restaurant as an ancillary use.
Correct.
But we're approving it as a primary use. And I think I understand why, but I'm wondering, is there some, in us making that decision, does it mean anything in terms of, I don't know, how this is viewed or the future, what runs with it in the future or anything like that?
As Mr. Keller was saying,
Yeah,
we're dealing with an ancillary use or a principal use. In one sense, it was ancillary because it's only going to be used for the Playhouse when the Playhouse is having an event. But it's also being used outside of that. To be safe, they're calling it a own principal use, separate, distinct, it's D1.
Yeah.
To keep it outside of the testimony about losing your designation as a nonprofit, from your standpoint, as a separate use, we can put limitations on it as a board, hours, when it can operate, when it can't, to make it not so separate and distinct that it's going to turn into a nightclub. Is that your question?
Maybe that's to the question, if I let me play it back and make sure I got it. Would you still have to make those same kinds of restrictions or distinctions if it were an ancillary use versus now it becoming, like what changes when it
Well,
becomes
I
a
think
primary use?
with their thought process, if this was to spin off, obviously you'd have to come back in front of the zoning board. If by somehow this would spin off into a separate use.
That's why I think we should put the limitations on the use. So who knows what kind of application is going to be in the future? Obviously, it can't, in order to subdivide it, they'd have to go straight down the middle. They'd have to come back anyway. To operate outside of what it's operating right now, it's township property, so that might be a lease violation, but again, separate and distinct from losing your designation as a nonprofit, we can limit it here so it doesn't spin off. I mean, theoretically, it's not gonna spin off because it's the same piece of
right,
property.
Right, I mean, I don't think it's gonna, I hope it won't spin off because the town would have to, I guess, approve that as well, would it not?
From a lease perspective.
From a lease perspective, when
That,
the town
yes,
owns
and
it,
from
right,
the
so.
board of, from a land use board perspective, yes, we'd have to approve. Even though it's getting its own
I'm just thinking.
separate and distinct D1 variance.
Yeah.
Due to parking issues, there'd be a lot.
There's a lot
Yeah.
There's a lot to that.
Okay, so-
Spin it off.
Maybe that's enough down this road. I just wanted to understand if we improved it. If it were continued as an ancillary use, would it?
We're calling it principal here to be
Yeah.
safe, make sure that they have all the criteria necessary to
Right.
get the D1 variance. It's being used, that's the problem, principally and ancillary. So we're gonna go with principal, but it's not gonna be able to spin off without coming back to the
Sure, okay. So my third point, which was raised twice already, is about buses. And parking, and specifically bus parking, and it's kind of a question for this group too. Like, I would think that, you know, you're encouraging educational groups, you're encouraging people to come, and it's better for them to come in a bus. But we're not providing bus parking. And should we be? Should that be something that, I don't know if that's required or not, how does that work? Because I think it should be, if you don't provide the parking for the bus, then of course it's gonna sit on the street, right? Because it doesn't have a place to go. So that's, I don't know how you answer that question, but it troubles me.
I think there's a couple components to that, but go ahead.
Well, I'd say theoretically, you've got parking spots for seats. You're bringing a bus with 50 people on it. You're bringing in X number of cars worth of people, so there should be parking for it. If we want to designate X number of parking spots for buses that are now taking up car parking spots, if the applicant would agree to that, I think the board, we can have them designate parking spots for the
There or
buses.
somewhere else, but somewhere.
Right, so the other thing I was thinking with this bus issue, once again, I'd still defer to police and traffic unit. But, you know, to push them into the parking lots, meaning that if everybody's parked, you still have open space. So the buses go into the parking lots and just sit there, not idle, at least get off the road.
Yeah.
But once again, I would defer to traffic to make sure that that's not a violation of fire, that you don't create unnecessary congestion in parking lots.
I would just
So-
like there to be a solution.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it would have to be taken up with the traffic department, with the police.
That's all I.
Well, can we make it a condition that the applicant is required to
Yes.
consult with
To consult with
the
traffic.
police department?
Right. When the idling has to stop. Gary, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think everything's been said. I think the paper mill is critical to the town. And I think these changes need to be made. I think that a lot of the changes, a lot of the variances that are requested are relatively minor in nature. I think the issues that my colleagues have raised, I share their concerns, and I think we need to address their conditions. But I would be supportive of the application.
Sure.
Overall, I'm supportive of the application as well. The paper mill is an economic driver for the town. It has been, I'm not 3 generations here, but I've been here for a while. I just really couldn't see the town without it, to tell you the truth. For the issues that we were discussing here about, restaurant hours and things like that, I would like to see some information on that as well.
Okay, so, part of conditions of approval, we obviously have the adoption of the purchase, the hours of operation and use to be supplied by the paper mill, along with the mission statement. I think that's important. The lighting, once again, I know 12 PM was mentioned, but I would, like I said, I want to make sure everyone's out of the building safely. The hours that were supplied by by Mr. Miller to be considered also as part of the memorialization, if that coincides, unless it's edited by.
It's our document.
Okay. So we'll use that, and also to contact police traffic unit regarding the parking of buses and idling of vehicles. Anything else?
Refuse pickup.
Refuse pickup to be adjusted, as mentioned, sometime 7 AM or thereabouts.
And consultation with the board's professionals about species of all.
Consultation with town arborists along with the environmental commission regarding plant species.
The reflection of the window, the glass will not reflect onto the residents.
Correct.
And subject to the board's determination, is there a condition that when there's events in the main hall, the restaurant can be open to support those events, but when there's no,
Yeah, I know what you're
it
saying.
can't be open
It's separate for the
and separate independently from the theater unless there's a separate event on a separate night when there's nothing going on in the theater. Did I say that?
Can I comment on it?
Yes.
The document that Mr.
I have a
Miller
motion
gave
to
you.
open the public portion of the hearing.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead.
Okay, the document outlines the various uses of the carriage house. It outlines the occupancy, what we're doing for pre-show dining when there is a performance, the number of hours that we're in operation for that, and that it states that everyone who is dining is going to a performance. We have performance-related events. Those are the murder mysteries and cabaret performances when there is not anything going on the main stage. We won't have separate events going on in the carriage house at the same time as on the main stage. And we've outlined the hours of operation for that. The third use is other rentals, where we might do business meetings, corporate meetings, the odd wedding, things like that, but not a disco and we're not looking to compete with any of the major things. We've outlined the hours for those as well, outdoors and indoors, and they're all on this piece of paper here.
Okay, then we'll
mark that.
Mark that.
8:15, I think, right?
I'd give you mine, but mine's marked out.
Yeah.
Maybe not A, since that's applicant, or
Yeah.
public P,
Oh, that's
P1,
Oh, that's right. That,
O1,
yeah.
O1 for objector 1. It's the paper mill, does it have a date on it, I think?
Yeah, today.
Paper mill statement, okay?
Keep the mission statement of the theater included in your paperwork there,
I can add that, it's on our website, I mean, I can send you that.
just for, because
information.
if it comes under another director or ownership for some reason.
So I have one last question for Rich, actually. If the, assuming that this is adopted for purchase, would it change then the zoning down there? Would that R6 go away?
No, it would have to be a separate ordinance to go before the planning board to ensure.
If they want to absorb it into.
Yeah, so it would be a multi-step process, starting with an ordinance from the recommendation from the policy of the township's planner, an ordinance created by the township committee, referral to the planning board, back to the committee, so it's a multi-stage process.
Correct.
It takes
Okay.
some time.
Thank you. Any further thing while we're still open? Then I'll close the public portion.
Just one comment, Chairman.
Yeah.
I think we're ready. And what I'll recommend is, we can, assuming the vote is favorable based upon the statements, we draft the resolution, we work in good faith, but certainly Mike and I will come back that night. And then, there may be more discussion, so
Sure.
we may have to do another draft, if not every point is agreed upon, we get that, right? This might
Very
not
well,
be sort of
we
a pro
can
forma
review that.
adoption.
And you're agreeable, as your client is, to what has been mentioned so far?
Yes, we're agreeable, we have to work out all the language.
course.
And there's
But the general gist of things.
Yeah, and there's an argument that maybe some of it could come in, we'll see, we have to work out some of those things. But what I'm saying is, I want to give you some comfort that whenever we're on for the resolution, Mike and I will come back, and we understand there may have to be 10 minutes of discussion exactly. We can't agree with the lawyers on every point. And then that may have to, right, there could be discussion, it's a little more complicated.
I also asked that with the conditions regarding the police, regarding that type of thing, that you make your best effort to reach out to them to get this buttoned up before we vote on the resolution, so that we know exactly where we're standing,
Yes.
or where some of this stuff is. 'Cause you have
We
to-
want to try to resolve it also, we don't have to, we can do the resolution in one night and not come back. But,
Yeah.
we get it, there's some nuance here, and there's a balance.
Okay, very
We're
well.
respectful of that process.
Okay. In that case, do I have a motion?
What are we motioning? I thought he was gonna come back with his.
No, you're still gonna vote on this now, and then the resolution.
Ah.
Motion to approve with
Yeah.
that whole list of stuff.
Exactly.
With all that stuff. Second.
Yeah, you're second.
Oh, I'm.
I will defer.
So for the record, we're doing all
Sorry.
these and all these in one vote.
No, what we'll do is we'll break it down on D, because that's really where the essence is. So, do you want to do it that way or no? Really? No? Yes?
It's like,
What's that? You want to do it that way? Okay, so for the D variants that are on this case, do I have a motion for use variance? In a second?
Just for the record,
Second.
the use on all three for the restaurant, the dual use and the height.
On height, correct. In a second? Second, Joe?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence,
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Regina Truitt,
yes.
Craig Plummer.
Yes. Next, we would have the C variances on both lots 13, 14, and 15 for Rice's minimum side yard, minimum rear lot coverage, max building height. And on 15, we have max front, minimum side, maximum lot, and maximum building.
Excuse me, Chairman, I did a site plan with that.
And site plan, yeah.
Okay, here we only need a majority vote. So
Right, correct, correct.
We can lose a vote here.
Yeah, that's
Not
fine.
as- not as-
Yeah, that's fine, okay.
I'm
So,
unhappy, Chairman, that you didn't mention that. The second most important thing in the survey of the greatest things in Milburn is my office at 75. Have to get over that, but
Right,
we'll
you'll
see
be
if I
okay.
can.
Sorry.
Okay.
so do I have a motion there?
Make a motion to approve.
In a second?
Second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence,
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
Yes.
Craig Plummer.
Yes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you for your time, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to jump into our next application. now looks at the clock and it's 10 o'clock, okay? So there's gonna be some bad news coming everyone's way. Much like you've been sitting at the airport all night waiting for your plane to take off and your plane gets canceled. That's what's happening. Good news, you won't have to stay in a hotel tonight, you can go home.
Are you getting vouchers?
Yeah, we'll give you a meal voucher, $15, you can go inside. Calendar 4024, Signature Realty, calendar 398924, I'll have Merchant on 241 Long Hill, and calendar 39924, James and Dina Glenn at 117 Cypress. You will not be heard this evening. We will move forward with veterinary emergency. In that case, we will not hear any new applicants after 10:30, okay? So let's see when we can put these three applications back on the calendar. We have a absolutely packed calendar heading through the fall, okay? So we want to be courteous to everyone and get you heard, okay? We don't want to put you back on a date where we have 6 cases and we're not going to get to you. So what's our next available, Eileen? We could probably do all 3 at one night, I would think.
The next open agenda is probably October 21st.
October 21st. So what we will do is we will put all 3 of these cases will be October 21st. How many do you have so far there?
With Brampton, which we just carried,
And you'll be heard that night?
and that's.
Yeah, you'll before. Okay.
Yeah, but we'll really, the density, next Tuesday. It's
Awesome.
gonna take at least 2 hours.
Yeah. So look,
The sign which should not take, that should not take long, so we should be able to. I mean,
so do you want to put, I just want to get, I don't want to bounce anyone again. Let's put it that way. So, is it best then to move the next one, put Signature Realty there?
I would put signature on, because it's just the one variance, the other two have.
I mean, you have several on 241 Long Hill.
We only have one.
Yeah, you guys only have one. You have one.
And it's like sign off, it has lot coverage. Oh my gosh.
I mean, look,
One's a carryover, one's a removal of condition. I mean, honestly, we probably could do maybe at least one on the 7th. That's as soon as, I don't have anything before October 7th.
no, I know that. I mean, it's what it
It's
is.
either the 7th or the 21st.
So let's do signature on the 7th.
Joe, it's Jim first for signature. I confirmed my experts available on the 21st, Mr. Gomez is as well, so we can take the 21st.
You want to go 21st?
Okay.
That's nice. There we go. Now we're down to 2. Let's want to do 117 Cypress on the 7th, and then we'll do 241 Long on the 21st. Does that work with you guys?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. Once again, I apologize. So with that being said, those applications we move to the corresponding dates. No further notice will be necessary, and it will be anything changes regarding those applications will be on the website and notice at town hall. If you're here on those cases as posers or speaking in favor, those will be the dates that'll be heard. At this point, I expect them to be heard then. So. We'll do our best to make sure that they get done that night. I will move those cases to the top of the list unless there is a returning one already, and out of consideration for this evening. Okay. So with that, I appreciate you stopping by, and glad you got to watch zoning board in action.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. So next up, we will have calendar
399224, Veterinary Emergency Group LLC. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good evening, Chairman, board members. John Wichaskala on behalf of Veterinary Emergency Group LLC. Chairman, we do realize we only have 5 board members. We're going to see how far we make it through anyway, and then see where we end up. But I am here tonight representing the entity with respect to their intended leasehold and change of use and occupancy in a portion of what's known as the Millburn Shopping Center. 720 Morris Turnpike property is owned by MSS Millburn Realty. It is identified as block 1904, lot 20. It's located in your B2B zone district. Property is currently developed with a 2-story multi-tenant mixed-use commercial building, which has a mix of retail service, office, and other commercial uses. Building is approximately 76,000 square feet in size. Last meaningful improvement to this center actually dates back to 1994-95, at which time the center was expanded to its current configuration with the current parking that's out there today, which I believe is approximately 283 parking spaces. The makeup of this building has changed over the years just in terms of the tenant mix. Particularly prior to and in the wake of the COVID pandemic. You'll all remember Walter Bauman Jewelers was in here, YB Fitness, which was a pretty active fitness facility, as well as Harmon Cosmetics, which shut down and vacated the center. MSS has been working for years. Ms. Davitt can attest to it because I've represented this property owner. I've actually been in on a number of applications, although most of them have come before the planning board. Because they were specifically permitted uses. Most recent applications that came in were actually for the Gold Medal Gymnastics Academy, which I believe actually was before you for a sign variance. They hired Mr. Skolnick for some reason, but I won't hold that against them. Just realize that. As well as the Aqua Tots Swim Academy. So we are here before you. I'm actually going to refer to the entity as VEG. That's what we call it because it's a lot easier than saying Veterinary Emergency Group throughout. But we are seeking site plan and variance relief in conjunction with this proposed change in use. We are proposing to occupy approximately 5,300 square feet. It's down on the end cap, closest to Panera, and it was part of the original Harmon Cosmetic leasehold space. We are not proposing any expansion or modifications to the site plan itself, with one exception. When we were at the DRC, they asked us to put in a crosswalk, which we'll address and show you in one location along that driveway, and just to relocate what we are proposing as reserved spaces. My client is a well-known, well-respected veterinary hospital. They've got 87 locations in 27 states. Closest facilities, Union, Clifton, Paramus, Hoboken. I know those just to name a few. This is not your standard veterinary office. This isn't a place where you're going to have customers scheduling regular appointments for checkups and shots and the like. This is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week emergency and urgent pet care hospital. As you're going to see and hear this evening, it is a relatively low-intensity use from the perspective of number of customers. We call them customers, and then the pets are the patients that come in here. It is a use that we believe is complementary to the rest of the center. We've always looked at that on the different changes in use and occupancy because our hours differ from some of the others. Reason we are before you tonight, the zoning board, is that the veterinary office use is not permitted in the zone district. And what I learned through this application, it's not actually, the vet use is not a use that's permitted anywhere in Millburn. It's just kind of a hole in the zoning ordinance. I do know it's something that your zoning subcommittee has been looking at just in terms of it. Although oddly enough, while veterinary use is not permitted, there is actually a parking standard for veterinary offices. So
you never know.
We're partway there, and the like. But that's why we're here tonight. So we do have the D1 use variance. We technically asked for a parking variance in conjunction with this because we are not proposing any new parking. We've already, in the past, we've received variance relief in this regard. The vet use actually is a lesser standard than what the retail standard would be for the Harmon Cosmetics if we were to do that comparison, because we base it on the number of exam rooms and the like. We also have a variance for signage. We'll speak to that tonight. You got a 2-foot height limitation, and VEG has, essentially their hospital symbol, which extends to 3 feet. It's really kind of an end cap feature on the sign itself. I have 3 witnesses. Jennifer Hanlon, she's the director of real estate. Jennifer's going to go over the operation. She's going to tell you something about VEG and the nature of the business and the operation, number of doctors and employees, and just general operations. We have Jim DeBarbery. He's a project architect. Jim's been on this site and on this project since its earliest years as a shopping center. I think he's done all the architecture, at least I know, at least in 94, 95. Actually, Mr. Keller's firm was involved in that too. And we have Rich as well to address planning testimony with respect to the relief. So unless anybody has any questions, I know we got limited time, so I'd like to call my first witness.
Come on down.
Do you swear or affirm testimony about the given evidence proceeding to be free full treatment of the issue?
I do.
Your name for the record, please.
Jennifer Hamlin, Hanlon. My address is 44 South Broadway, White Plains, New York.
And Jennifer, can you please provide the board just a bit of background, what your involvement is here, what your role is with the company?
Sure. I am the Senior Director of Real Estate and Development for Veterinary Emergency Group, also known as VEG. I've been with the company for a little under 6 years. I've taken the company from about 3 locations to now 87, soon to be 90 by the end of this year. Of our 90 locations, I have personally been involved in about 80 of them.
And why don't you speak to the business, the nature of the operations and the like. I'll just turn it over to you. You can go for it.
Sure. So as our name entails, Veterinary Emergency Group, we are a nationwide group of emergency and urgent care hospitals for pets. We operate under a single mission, which is helping people and their pets when they need it most. We are the only nationwide group of emergency-only pet hospitals in the country. So all of our locations operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, providing people and their pets care when they need it, whether that's during the day or after hours. Something that's very unique about the type of emergency care that we provide is that we are an open concept hospital. So you can stay with your pet for every single piece of their treatment, whether they're being triaged, they're having surgery, they're staying overnight. We do things that are pretty atypical of an emergency facility. We sit on the floor with your pet. We see exotics, which in this case could be a bird or a rabbit, or a lizard or a snake. So it's a really customer-focused way of providing emergency care that we haven't seen anywhere else.
Majority of our pets, dogs, cats?
90% of our cases are dogs and cats. The other 10% make up what we call exotics. Exotics in the in the veterinary industry is anything that is not a cat or a dog. So a guinea pig, a bunny, a rabbit, any type of bird, etc.
And I'll ask only because of the DRC asked this question. We're not treating farm animals and the like here. We wouldn't be bringing in horses or anything.
No farm animals, just household pets.
And can you speak to, I'd like to focus in on number of doctors, number of employees that would be on site at any particular time?
Sure. So we typically have about 8 to 10 employees on staff at one time. That usually consists of 2 doctors, and then we have 2 assistants, 2 veterinary technicians, or what we call veterinary nurses, and then 2 other additional roles. One might be a receptionist or a customer care advocate, but it's typically 8 to 10 individuals that are on staff at any given time, and we do operate 24 hours a day, and it's typically on 2 12-hour shifts.
And Jennifer, can we speak about volume of customers, what your typical experience is, what you would expect here, and what you experience in your other facilities?
Sure. We typically see about 2 to 3 clients or customers an hour. Our busiest hours tend to be once work gets out, so about 5 p.m. to let's call it 8:30 p.m. or 9 p.m. at night.
And weekends?
Weekends are pretty busy for us. Sundays are our busiest day just because all the other vets in the community are closed. I didn't mention earlier, we operate and we see ourselves as an extension of the general practices in the communities that we operate in. So you have your general practitioner where you go for your spay, your neuter, your shots, your typical, my dog or cat needs to be seen once a year for a checkup. We operate as an extension of them. So when they are closed, they will refer their patients to VEG for emergency services.
And we say we're 24 hours, but what happens generally? You've indicated that the busiest time is, say, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. during the week. What kind of activity do you typically see from 9 o'clock until the following morning?
Typically about 11 o'clock to about 8 a.m. Is pretty slow. The only people really coming into an emergency veterinary facility during the dead of night are people with true emergencies. So you're seeing maybe 1 or 2 cases, if that, an hour. There could be some cases not coming in at all throughout the night. It's really just anyone having a life or death emergency with their pet.
And I'd like to talk a little bit deliveries. What type of deliveries do you normally get?
Just like any business, it's the typical deliveries, Amazon, FedEx, that are done during normal business hours.
And those deliveries generally through the front door?
Through the front door or from the side door if we have a side door that they can go through.
And how do you handle medical waste?
So medical waste, we abide by whatever the medical waste code for that municipality or state is. Some states have different codes, but we do have a facility that comes and picks up medical waste a few times a week or as needed. Most of the medical waste that we're producing is medical sharps. So they're disposed of in a sharps container and then they're stored in the facility until they get picked up by that provider.
And you mentioned pets overnight. I do want to confirm we are not proposing, we don't kennel animals, we don't provide just overnight stays. The pets that would be there are only pets that would be post-surgery under observation for their emergency needs. Is that right?
That is correct. So animals only stay on premises overnight if it's incidental to their emergency care. We don't provide any type of boarding or kenneling. So you cannot call VEG and say, I'm going away for the weekend. Can my pet stay with you? So similar to a human hospital, you would only stay in the hospital overnight if you're sick. If you are going on vacation, you'd go to a hotel. We are not a hotel. We are an emergency provider only.
So real quick, I think what's up?
Yep.
You mentioned something about a pet owner staying. Like, to explain that to me. So if you're, so you say you're not a hotel, but
So we're not a hotel. So you can't call up VEG and say, hey, my pet's sick and I also need a place to stay tonight. Can we come to VEG? But something that is very unique is that we are a customer focused experience provider. So let's say you show up at VEG at 3 o'clock and your dog has ingested a tennis ball and that is too big for us to scope out, which is a tool that you could typically put into the stomach and scope out whatever's been swallowed. A tennis ball might be too big. We say, hey, your pet has to go to surgery. They go into surgery at 3:30. Now your pet has to stay overnight with us. We're not going to say, hey, come bring your blow up mattress and sleep outside the cage. You are more than welcome to stay on site because we are open 24 hours a day to stay with your pet. We'll pull up a chair for you. You can stay, you can observe them as well. And you can do that for as many days or as many nights as you wish. I will say most people tend to go home because they can see that their pet's in good care. But we give everyone the opportunity to do that. We'll go as far as, hey, if you don't want to stay or you can't stay, you can FaceTime with your pet overnight. So it really is trying to connect people with the care that their pet is getting. Similar to if you took your child to a pediatrician or the emergency room, they'd never say, hey, mom and dad, we're bringing them to the back. We'll be back soon. Same thing with your pet.
Got it. Okay.
And how about noise? How about sound attenuation? Any concerns in that regard?
So we operate at 87 of these facilities across the country. We have never received a noise complaint in the 87 locations that we operate in, and they are all retail-based locations. We only take retail-based locations like we're talking about in this application. We do install noise deafening batting panels that go on the ceiling or on the walls to absorb whatever noise might be happening. And of course, any walls that are put up in between us and another tenant get insulated. Candidly, most of our pets coming into the facility are not making much noise because they tend to be very sick. Pets after major surgery are not making any noise, nor are they really moving. They're pretty much confined to a cage for the remainder of their stay.
No pet sales, no adoptions, all that stuff, right?
No pet sales. We don't sell anything in the facility. The only items you can purchase are actually go towards our nonprofit. So if you want to buy a T-shirt that goes towards the nonprofit, you can do that. But we don't sell any type of pet care supplies, food, and we don't do any type of adoption. So you cannot come to Veg and adopt a pet.
Pharmaceutical needs for pets?
So we are not a pharmacy. We don't dispense pharmaceuticals. You are only given any type of prescription drugs incidental to your pet's treatment at Veg. So all of our controlled substances are stored in a Cubex, which is a 50-state compliant DEA box that needs a code and a fingerprint to get into. So only the doctor on staff who is assigned to that Cubex can operate that machine.
But if you send a patient home with medication, if there's any renewals on that, that's not done for you. That would have to go to a pharmacy.
Correct. So that would typically go to their general practice. So because we see ourselves as an extension of the general practices, your pet has that surgery with Veg. A week later, maybe the wound's infected. They need antibiotics. They can come back to Veg and we can see them again and open a new case and prescribe antibiotics. But if not, if they don't want to come back, they would have to go to their general practice who would then prescribe those antibiotics.
Do animals ever go on the lamb? I mean, seriously, if you have a snake or something,
No.
yeah, or they become lambs.
No farm animals.
Has that happened or not?
I'm sorry, can you explain the question?
Have any animals ever escaped
Oh,
from
escaped.
your run out? You know?
So with any veterinary facility, you run the risk of an animal escaping. We do have security protocols in place. So all of our facilities are designed with a double vestibule entrance. So the first vestibule door is typically kept locked. So you have to be buzzed in through that door. And then the second one is also kept locked. So God forbid an animal does escape within the facility, they'd have to somehow open two doors to get outside. So we haven't had any instances where an animal has run out of a facility. Of course, just like any veterinary provider, you always run the risk, whether it's Veg or it's Banfield or it's someone walking their pet into PetSmart, that your dog could get loose. That's an unfortunate side effect, but we do have those protocols in place. And when our providers are walking pets like to or from the car, they have a double leash. So that is another safety protocol that we put in place.
Do you walk the pets like after surgery to make sure that they are going to the bathroom? Like in this area, is there a grass strip here? I don't even know. Is there like a grassy area you can walk dogs after surgery to make sure they're going to the
Yeah,
bathroom?
we'll show that on the site plan. It's actually on one of the islands, so, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jennifer. I mean, obviously cats, I assume we've got litter boxes. We dispose of their waste just through regular means. But if there is a need to take a pet out after a surgery, once it's able to, they'd be able to walk out to, we just have a grass area on one of the islands out in front of the
Oh, yeah, I don't even know what's on the side of here. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's woods or.
Yeah, we've got our neighbors off to the side. We've got that acute care facility. And then we do have a fence and a line. We're just trying to keep everything internal to the site.
But the answer is yes. If a pet is healthy enough to be walked outside, we will take them with a double leash to whatever landscape island or grassy area is available to us at whatever facility we're discussing.
Do you have any like refrigeration for pets that expire, or I mean, you have
Yes.
to, for anything that's euthanized or something? How's that work?
So we do have a freezer that is kept in the back of house, so out of sight and out of reach from any of our customers. So if an animal is unfortunately euthanized or passes away naturally in our facility and they do not go home with the customer, they are stored until our crematory service is able to come pick them up. We do not do any crematory services in our facility. It's a third party that will come pick up that animal and then deliver their remains back to our facility at a later date. And that pickup is as needed. So there might be a week where we have 1 euthanasia. There could be a week where we have 4 or 5. So whenever the freezer is full is when it gets picked up.
Does the Department of Health in any of, or New Jersey, let's say New Jersey, do they have any regulations on that?
Not to my knowledge, no. We operate 4 locations in the state of New Jersey, and there are no regulations as it relates to that.
That's interesting. So if you're doing surgery, and there's, anesthesia products, does the Board of Health not have any medical waste? Just curious. It's interesting. It's an interesting question. You would think that it would be.
To my knowledge, there's nothing that has to do with the storage of deceased animals. I personally can't speak to what the legal protocols
Or just
are
blood and body fluids.
for that. You'd be actually shocked at how little regulations there tend to be around veterinary care. It doesn't tend to be as bulky as human medical care, but we do follow whatever the protocols are for that state. We do follow them.
And storage of because they're flammable for some of those anesthetic.
So we do have oxygen on site, and that usually gets covered during our building permit application because we do have a oxygen generator on site. So the way it's run through the ceiling actually is usually covered with the building permit. I apologize. I did not design the hospital, so I can't speak to the legal
Speaking of generator,
ramifications.
will you have a generator on site? That's actually a good question.
We have an oxygen generator on site typically. So instead of storing containers of oxygen, it's a generator that can actually just continually make its own
It's like a
oxygen.
condenser. But do you have like a generator in case the power goes out?
We do not keep a generator on site, but most of our facilities do have a external generator switch. So God forbid there's a hurricane, we can call a hurricane or a big storm, we can call a third-party service that will come and park a generator in usually a spot or 2 in the parking lot and hook veg up, and then we can stay open throughout the storm.
Everybody's in the OR, right?
Correct, and we do have protocols in place, God forbid, like power does go out mid-surgery, and all of our hospitals are briefed on what to do in case of a natural disaster.
Do any dog training?
No dog training, no additional services other than veterinary services.
X-ray on site?
We do have an X-ray on site, yes.
So you have to build a compliant room then
Yes.
for escaping gamma rays?
Your doctors, they employees, or do you bring in outside doctors that can run around and practice?
No, all of our doctors are veg employees.
Where do you get your employees from?
The best question we always get asked. So most of our doctors are either hired from other emergency facilities around the country. So whether that's from New Jersey or other facilities in nearby states, and they relocate to whatever veg we're opening. Something very interesting about veg is we have a program called our new ER doctor program, where we will take doctors directly out of vet school. We'll put them through a 6-month intensive, train them to be a veg ER doctor, and then we will place them around the country in our veg facilities.
Any other questions?
Specialty services like a dentist?
No
or
specialty
derm-
services, just emergency and urgent care. If your pet requires some type of specialty service, so God forbid they come in and they're seizing and we see a mass on the x-ray in their brain, we will refer you to a neurologist. You can choose to go to that one, you can go somewhere else, but we don't provide any type of specialty services on site.
Go ahead, John. You got anything else?
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to call Jim DeBarbary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You swear some testimony about you giving tonight is going to be the truthful truth and but the truth?
I do.
Your name, spelling, and your name.
James DeBarbary, that's DeBarberi.
Mr. DeBarbary, can you please provide the board with a brief summary of your educational and professional background and licenses you hold?
Sure. I'm a senior principal of DeBarbary Architects, 97 Chestnut Street, Rutherford, New Jersey. I have a bachelor's architect degree. I was licensed in New Jersey in 1980. I have 12 other licenses in other states, including the surrounding states of New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Connecticut.
You've been qualified to, as an expert in architecture before boards, is that correct?
Yes.
including the Milburn Planning Board with respect to
Yes,
this
the
particular
planning
site?
board, yeah. I've been in this room about a half dozen times, but I don't remember being in front of the zoning board.
And your license is a good standing in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, it is.
Credentials are accepted by the board.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. DeBarberry, you're familiar with this site, you're familiar, you prepared the plans here?
Yes.
Could you just provide a very brief overview, point out where the location is, and just touch briefly on the floor plan and the
Since
signage?
everybody left, I can bring this a little closer. Is that okay? Yep. Okay, this is the drawing we submitted, ST1. It's our site plan. I have the site plan up on the upper right here. Mars Turnpike runs left to right at the bottom of the sheet. Here is the location of the veterinary office. The rear of that center is currently vacant and unoccupied.
Leasehold space approximately 5,300 square feet, correct?
Yes, it
Ken?
is.
And can you touch on the parking requirement? We have 4 exam rooms, is that correct?
Yes, the parking requirement is 6 spaces per exam room or doctor. I think only
Whichever
two-
is greater.
Whichever is greater. Only 2 doctors are here. So there are 4 exam rooms. That's 24 spaces. As comparison, Harmon is a retail store, and that was, when you divide that by 1 per 200, that would require 26 spaces. In this, with 6 spaces and 4 exam rooms, we only have 24. So we're 2 less with this than in retail.
And Jim, our primary entrance is through the front door, correct?
Yes, it's to the front door. If you're familiar with the center, Panera's to our west, but it's to the front door, right in this area of the parking lot.
And there is an existing side entrance that is to remain, we're not,
Yeah, it's mainly for our second means of egress to meet code.
Real quick, that 3,400 square feet that's behind it, was that part of Harmon's or was that never part
That
of
was
Harmon's?
part of Harmon's.
It was, okay,
Yeah.
so this is just being
Yeah,
pieced off of
Harmon's was
Harmon's.
bigger.
Okay, got it.
So this is being subdivided.
all right, so why don't we go to the floor plan, Jim, and you can put that up.
Just
and
one
signage,
quick
unless
thing,
there's something else.
I'm just gonna go, one quick thing. Just as far as zoning, we comply with everything except we have 2 non-conforming requirements that are existing. Our rear lot should be 50 feet, and this center is, oh, it's been here forever. It's really only 39 feet, and the lot coverage is, the zoning ordinance is 85%, we're at 92%. But they're existing, they've been that way for many, many years.
And technically as well, we've got an existing nonconformity for front yard parking. The zone doesn't
That's-
allow front yard parking, but it
That's
has
correct.
for its entire duration, correct?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. The spaces that are dedicated for the veg facility, they're over here on the east side. Up front is, I think it's an urgent care facility. There's residential back behind this. So it's right along that line. They're going to be signed. They're signed as short-term parking. They have the veg logo on there and they're decaled.
And that's actually, those spaces are actually in that location as recommended by the DRC, is that correct?
Yes,
And the DRC also requested we had that crosswalk, painted crosswalk.
yes, we have a yellow painted crosswalk that leads directly from the parking to the front sidewalk that leads you to the entrance.
Okay. Yep.
This is drawing ST2. This is our floor plan. Over on the left side of our sheet, we've had testimony on the rooms in this, but just very briefly, the entrance is over to the left side of this space with the vestibule that Jennifer spoke about. We have 4 exam rooms. We have the x-ray, surgery. There's a break room, of course. There's a laundry and storage area and a lab, toilets also. So just,
And can you speak to the signage?
yes. The front signage would say veterinary emergency group. The letters on that are 2 foot high, but we're requesting a variance for this 3 foot, 3 foot high logo, which is a corporate logo that identifies this facility. We are okay on the square footage of that sign, even with the logo. It's just the height of that logo is what we have variance request for.
And we're also proposing an insert that is compliant into the freestanding sign as well, is that right?
Yes, and there's an error on this, and it was brought up in Graham's report. Although he did reference what we have here. This sign here, and it's shown on the pylon sign, which is only 8 feet wide. It's called out incorrectly as 107 square feet. It's actually 10.7 square feet.
Oh.
So it's a major difference. So that should be corrected on that. And it is a double-sided sign. So even with both sides, we're only at 21 square feet. I think the ordinance that Graham referenced had said the limit was 50 square feet. So we're compliant on that. We have some storefront graphics. They are located around the front entrance door to help the customer into that area. And it's just, again, logos of the veg facility, one on the door and one adjacent to it on the glass storefront. And I think that's it, John.
Thank you. Nothing
How fast can you be?
Quick.
All right, do it.
Nope.
You swear affirm testimony about the did, here, you told you
Yes, Richard Keller, planner, and engineer for the applicant. Hearing tonight as a planner. I've been licensed since 1990 as a planner and engineer. I have a bachelor in science and civil engineering, master's in architecture with a concentration in urban planning. I've appeared before this board as recently as 20 minutes ago, and approximately 100 boards throughout the state of New Jersey. And I didn't check my email, but my licenses are still good effect.
Thank you, Congratulations, Seth.
I can go. So essentially, it is. We should compare notes because he stole my thunder. It is a paradox that medical uses are permitted in the zone, but not veterinary uses. And it's also a further paradox that pet grooming and pet care is permitted in the zone, but not veterinary services. And as was indicated, it's actually not permitted in any zone within the community. But I understand that has been a focus. I think, like many people, I think at one point people either thought, members of the township committee probably thought that medical was either dog was medical or that it was personal services because there you own the pet. However, loophole through exclusions, not a permitted use. Just to quickly, I'm going to introduce A1, and I'll date it as today, 8/19/2024. And I wanted to show the relationship of the space to the entrance and then a little bit about the side. So running on the photos very quickly, this is the Milburn Shopping Center, 727-78 Morris Avenue, looking north from Morris Essex Turnpike. You can see the easterly entrance, and there's that monument sign, which actually each face has about 50 square feet. And as indicated, we're proposing to take about 10.7. So that is a conforming application into a non-conforming sign. The sign is actually a little too close to the street, but it's an existing non-conforming condition. You can see the back of the site. If you know it, the Panera Bread is to the left of the pediment, and the old Harmon, where the veg is going, is to the right. We look at photograph number 2. This is looking as you come into that driveway. I would point out, and it's actually hard to see, but the Panera letters are about 24 inches, and they certainly don't appear to be very large. In the background is the sign from the Ninja. That sign was approved again because it's 200 feet back from the street. That sign, the lettering is 43 inches, and the logo is actually 63 inches, and it disappears into the background. So I certainly think here I put veterinary emergency group. These letters, proportionally, that would be 24 inches. That's the relationship of veg being 36 inches. So you can see that it's really going to disappear into this. In fact, I would almost think they should double the size of the veg to make it more easily user identified as they come in. But we do need a variance for that 36-inch. What's different than Ninjas or anyplace else is people are coming in here sometimes late at night. They may see the small sign, the 10.7 square foot sign. They may have never been here before. Not many people go to emergency services very often. They come in, they've got a mall that's 200 feet back. They need to know where to go. They make a left and they get halfway through the site. They see where they want to go. They're going to make a quick maneuver over to the right. You get potential conflicts if it's during the day. It's really important, probably the most important place within this Millburn Mall to have readily visible wayfinding with your signage is probably this space. And I think that, to my thinking, it's actually a little small, but the red logo against the gray background will certainly make it pop. But if you look at the other photographs, whether it was anywhere else in the site, you can see the Panera Bread disappears into the background just the same way it's really gonna pop on that facade is that 36-inch veg logo that says there's an emergency facility here. I also wanted to show, as you come in the right driveway, here's the landscaped area where the pets can be double leashed and walked. That driveway does continue past what would be the reserve spots. And then if we continue down there, what I want to show is standing with my back at the facade, I took a look at the buffering to the residential neighborhood, which actually fronts on Canterbury Lane. There's a house tucked in there at 72 Canterbury Lane. You can see this tall stockade fence, existing landscaping. So it is well screened from the surrounding neighborhood. We do need a D1 variance because of that paradox that we're not permitted in the zone. And again, this follows the Medici standard, and that is site suitability. And certainly we think this is, if it's suitable for pet care and it's suitable for human medical, we think it's certainly suitable for medical services, emergency medical services for pets. And again, keep in mind, demonstrating that particular site suitability doesn't require proof that there's no other potential location for this use within the community or that somebody couldn't go there. But we all know in a vanishing time where retail is certainly hurting, medical services are on the rise, and this is a type of service that is underutilized. A couple of years on the way home from a planning board, a dog came from behind a van. I hit the dog. I had to take that dog to West Caldwell at almost 1 o'clock in the morning to get emergency services. It was harrowing. If I could have been here, actually choked up a little bit. If I could have been here, it would have been, the dog would have died anyways, but it's still, it seems crazy that we're underutilized in this community, a community that has so many pets and so many cats and dogs that we're underutilized in terms of emergency medical services. So there's certainly a need for the proposed use. So the suit is particularly suited for the site, and there's a need for it within the community. As was indicated, we don't need what is also particularly suitable about this site is that most of the rest are retail or their athletic services. They all operate off hours to the principal hours that these guys see their most patients. So evenings between 5 and 8 p.m. and Sundays is when the rest of this mall is underutilized. So certainly our utilization, the intensity of our use dovetails very well with this site. So we think it is particularly suited to the proposed use. We certainly also advance other purposes of the Land Use Act at 4055 D2, public safety and general welfare and public health for our animals. We're providing for a variety of commercial needs within the community, which is sorely underutilized at this point. And we're contributing to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, and communities. Sometimes I really worry about our commercial zones because sometimes it's a tale of two cities about Springfield and Summit thriving, and we've been having trouble filling. So I think it's important when we can get a really good tenant with a unique use that is supportive of and helps the other uses within it doesn't cut against any of the other uses within the strip. It makes for a better community because it reinforces our commercial strip. There is, as indicated, the only C variance we need. We don't need a variance for the sign in front, but we do need that variance. We're still compliant with the area, but to go from 24 to 36 inches in height, we need a variance. I think it should be more like 64 inches because you can see the other 63-inch sign kind of disappears, but I think the red will make it pop. Positive criteria, we think it's a C2 flexible variance where it's a better alternative than a conforming because it does provide for critical wayfinding at a very distressing time for a pet owner. And certainly, we think the negative criteria is met. There's no substantial detriment to the public good, and there's no intent no impairment to the master plan. Again, this only supports our community as a small suburb of the highest quality to have these kind of support services. What's also particularly suitable about this is it's on a major collector road, right near Route 78, right near Route 24, 124. It's quickly accessed from Short Hills, quickly accessed out of Maplewood, as well as the surrounding community. So I think that it meets the Medici standard. The enhanced burden of proof is that we must reconcile the omission. That's one I got to say, I think it was really just missed, and it was assumed that it was somehow picked up under general medical or it was picked up under retail services. But apparently there has been some discussion that this is an area where the zoning committee is looking at finding appropriate places where pet emergency services can go. And we certainly think if it's good enough for medical and good enough for pet care, it would be appropriate here. We think it's a great use. We hope that you can welcome this great use to our town.
And Mr. Keller, I guess out of an abundance of caution, I did notice for a parking variance, although we're not changing that, I don't believe topology, the planner actually called that out as a variance either, but can you just speak to that briefly?
Yeah, the mall is, there are technically not enough spaces within in the mall facility to support the variety of uses. And so, let me see, I think I've got the number.
Yeah, 441 required, 283 existing and proposed, correct?
Yep, that's exactly correct.
And that was previously considered and approved by the planning board as well on the prior.
In every application that's gone before then, we did the educational services in the center, we've done Panera before, so it's been considered every time. This, if you've driven down, if you've gone to the bagel shop or you've done any uses, this lot is empty. In fact, it serves as overflow parking for the bagel shop. If you go most of the times, more than 50% of that parking is vacant.
And Mr. Keller, I'm going to ask you this because I forgot to ask our engineer to confirm, but we did receive some reports. The police department did not have any comments.
Correct.
We did receive a number of comments in an August 2nd report from the chief, and we're going to comply with all those.
So the usual pro forma, box, et cetera, yep, we'll comply.
Engineering had no comments.
Correct.
The DRC, we addressed their comments with the relocation of those parking spaces and the crosswalks.
Yep. Correct.
And I don't think there were any other comments. that-
Topology had no other outstanding requests.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Keller?
Do you have a concern about security since you're open 24/7 in the middle of the night?
No, it's actually still, it's still a fairly well-traveled road within the community. I think it's probably the best location for it and probably the safest. And they do have a double security entry system. So it not only keeps dogs in, but it keeps other people out.
In after certain hours.
While it's 24 hours, right?
What's that?
While it's 24 hours.
Yeah,
on
while
the
it's
street.
24 hours, yeah.
And is there another veterinarian on the other side? I think it's in Summit.
There are a number of veterinarians, some of which call themselves dog and cat hospitals, but they don't offer quite the same services. There are places.
There's one in Milburn, I
where
mean.
your pet, yeah.
There's one in
Yeah.
Milburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
different
other
zone, I
places
guess.
within the community that are veterinary or other shades of veterinary, but not the same
Yeah, it's a
level.
Milburn veterinarian, but he's not for 24 hours.
Not,
they're-
not hospital either.
They're not 24 hours.
And it may have been just a pre-existing non-conforming.
They've been there forever, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been there forever.
People typically, if they're coming in, they typically call an appointment, or to say, hey, I'm coming in, or are you expecting them, or do they just show up?
Yes, so we don't work on appointment, but about 98% of the people coming to our facility will call ahead, so that we can advise them, like, yes, you're having an emergency, you should come into our facility. If it doesn't seem like an emergency, we can save you the trip in and say, hey, wait till morning, you can go to your regular vet. But most of the people coming to our facility will call in ahead so that our team is ready for them.
Yeah, police generally give out the number of the closest emergency. That happened with me. Police gave me the closest local emergency facility for an animal. and then I call them directly and they said, we'll be waiting for you when you get it. That's generally the way it's done.
Any other questions for any of the testimony we've heard? Anything further?
Chairman, we don't have anything further. If the board has any other general questions, I sort of will give the same comments that Mr. Skolnick did. I do know we have 5 board members tonight. If anybody has any concerns, we'd like to know that before we decide to go to a vote. That would be acceptable.
I will offer you the same courtesy. We will all
Thank you.
give our opinion, and you'll be able to smell the food before you taste it.
I appreciate it.
Anyone else in the crowd here tonight have any other comments regarding this? I'm assuming you're all together.
We kind of like it.
Oh, yes. By the way, we have general counsel and site selection manager.
Okay, I wasn't sure, but I just wanted to make sure.
Just hanging out.
So let the record reflect there is no one in the audience other than the applicants regarding this application. So close the public portion without question. So board members, your thoughts?
So as someone who's been to Red Bank and other hospitals in the middle of the night with my sick dog, I think this is definitely a need. You have to go pretty far for veterinary care in the middle of the night. And my only concern, this is just being picky, is that I would encourage you to get a generator because we lose power here in Short Hills. It's like insane, like fairly frequently. I have a generator at my house because we just got tired of losing all the food in the freezer. So I would encourage you to look into getting a generator, but I certainly can't compel you to do that. I would just say with lives at stake, valuable lives at stake. And you've got a lot of reasons to keep the power on, not just the OR. But I would approve this.
Thank you.
I'd be supportive as well. I think it's a use that is important, and I think the site is appropriate for that use, and I would be supportive.
I do as well for all the reasons mentioned. I think it would be a great addition to the township and not a particularly difficult use either. So I think it would work well with that facility.
I am in support of this application.
Same.
Okay, so I'm assuming you'll move forward with the vote?
Yes, we'd like to move
Okay,
forward. Thank you very much.
We'll break it down into 2 components. Of course, one being the D variance, the others the existing Cs for the most part, not being exacerbated. So in the first vote would be for the D variance, which is the business use. Do I have a motion regarding that?
Make a motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Joseph Colton,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence.
Yes.
Terry Rosen.
Yes.
Anita Shirley.
Yes.
Yes. Next, we'll have the mix of C variances, minimum rear yard setback, max lot coverage, required parking spaces and front yard parking, all currently non-conforming, not changing either. Do I have a motion for those 4?
Motion to approve.
In a second?
Second.
Joseph Colton,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence.
Yes.
Terry Rosen.
Yes.
Anita Shirley.
Yes.
Yes, good luck with the project.
This one?
Yeah, that was
Oh, it was with the state, okay. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for hanging in with us too.
Oh, yeah, sign was in C, I
Sign was the C.
Yeah. C.
Yeah.
And second.
Site plan, well, that's subsumed.
Get all these papers.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Have a good rest of the summer, everybody.
Yeah.
And you too.
Anyone like to comment, anyone have any further comments in the crowd, please let me know. There's no one else here, so may I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Enjoy all these papers.
Thanks, Arlene.